Eating Soup Alone is a podcast hosted by me, Christopher Crumley, and co-hosted by Nicholas Johnson. We try our best to ramble incoherently about a handful of movies at least once a week.
So Scream
1. Yeah, let's
How
move
many
on
times
to
have you seen
cinema
Scream?
now.
How many
What's
times
that?
have you seen Scream?
How many times have I seen Scream?
Yeah.
Probably like 6-7 times maybe.
Yeah?
Good movie.
Can you take yourself back to the first time you ever saw it?
First time I ever saw Scream, I don't know what got me to watch it, but I saw it on YouTube. It's one of
Okay.
those things I found the whole thing in like 3 parts on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And like 1480p or something like that. And I watched it and I loved it. I was like, oh, this is great. And then I was like, oh, sick, they got Scream 2. And I watched it and I was like, oh, okay, they got Scream 3. I'm here. I guess I'll watch Scream 3. And I don't remember anything. I remember who the killer is in Scream 3 because I recognize him from a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know his character, his motivations, or anything like that. I'm sorry, their motivations. Spoilers. But, yeah, first time I watched Scream, I was, I don't know, maybe sophomore in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was cool. And I think the next time I watched it, I was like, oh no, this movie's really special. It's not particularly scary ever.
I would disagree a little bit.
I mean, it has its moments where it's a little spooky, but I think that's it.
I would say Ghostface feels dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's where a little bit of the scare comes from for me. Like, anytime he's on screen, I'm like, oh. Because I think there's a lot of, like, gruesome deaths and gory kind of shit.
Okay, yeah.
In Scream. So it seems like a much more visceral thing, right?
I think that part of that is due to the fact that he is just a dude.
Yeah.
And I think it is very clearly...
Which is kind of my problem with the second one. There's a
Yeah.
lot of, like, how did he get over there?
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll get to it now. There's a part in Scream 2 where they're in the back of a cop car driving away. And a cop turns and looks in the back seat. He's like, oh, cop joke, am I right? And Ghostface is just outside of the car and punches through the window and starts killing all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Well, then, towards the tail end of the thing, they've established that there's only one way out of the car.
Yeah.
They run away from the car. Then the main girl, whose name is Sydney Prescott, is like, wait, I gotta go back and find out. She goes back. He's not in the car. Then somehow he's made his way behind her friend who stayed back to where the turning point was, even though, again, established there's only one way out of the car. And like I said, it's like a Batman moment where it's like, yes, I understand how he probably could have, but one, not without making a scene, and two, not that quickly kind of a thing.
Also, he was just unconscious for 3-4 minutes straight. There's no
Brain
he's
dead.
got the mental fortitude to do
But
that
anyways,
sneaking.
back to Scream.
Back to Scream 1. I think he's a man, and that's what makes him scary. Men.
Yeah.
That's what makes him scary. And I think that point is really well illustrated in the beginning with Drew Barrymore, where, like, she's, like, hiding behind the TV or something like that, or she's, like, looking in through the window and she's outside at this point, and you see him just, like, moving curtains and like looking through shit like, fuck, is she back here, is she over here, instead of like a Jason Voorhees or something like that where they're just like, you turn around and they're like, I'm there. You see him just like, fucking gee, where'd she go? It's great. I love it.
Yeah, that first scene, it's really hard. Well, one of the first things that I mentioned was like, I wish that I would have been, not to get all le wrong generation, but I wish that I could have seen Scream before the Ghostface killer was a branded thing. Because I think that there's a layer to which Scream is scary. Because from my understanding, at least, that was a pretty common costume. It's not something they came up with for the movie.
It's not something they came up with the movie. It was a costume that was sold like at a local carnival, and the local carnival had the rights to it.
Okay.
So no, I don't think you would have if you were in that generation.
Yeah, you would have seen it on Halloween or anything like that, right?
You probably wouldn't have seen it before this.
Yeah,
movie.
but at least it's not a thing where it's like, oh, that's Ghostface. And I guess you could say that about all the movies. Like, I wish there was a way that I could see Jason Voorhees with a hockey mask for the first time and not already have that burned into my brain, or even Freddy Krueger. But anyways, the other thing about it is like there's that moment which, again, like I wish I could experience or like remember experiencing for the first time where like he goes like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "Why do you want to know my name?" And it's the turning point in the conversation because he goes, "Because I want to know who I'm looking at."
Oh yeah.
And that's a really, really like still gives me a little bit of chills, but it doesn't hit me as hard as I feel like it would. Like again, like I just wish I was cognizant of the first time I heard that bit because that is a big and it's good and it still works. I think.
Yeah, it is. We were talking about it while we were watching it. It's the call is coming from inside the house thing, which was just the scariest thing on the planet to me as a kid, and to this day, yeah, no, that is. Ooh, bone chilling.
Yeah. And so, like, I think the first scene is a really, really important scene because, like I said, yeah, there's, like, this brutality and, like, visceral nature to it, like, danger to, like, Ghostface. He really does feel like a threat. There's an element to which where, like, it's set in this, like, white suburban safe, don't lock your doors kind of thing, right? So there's that, neat thing where, like, Ghostface says, like, I'm at the front door, I'm at the back door, you decide kind of a thing.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I don't want to play this game. Little secret, obviously, they're both at each door, so there's no way she's going to pick the right door, right? Because there's two of them.
Actually, no, I think it's just Johnny Depp. Because I think later, Jamie Kennedy's like, oh, well, where were you last night, Matthew? Literally, he's like, I was with my girlfriend all night. And so that's how they can kind of get away with it by having an alibi. One of them has an alibi at all times,
But anyways, fast forward to the end. Like, and again, it ends on, like, such a fucking, like, dark and brutal, like, moment where, like, the parents are coming up to the doors and she's just around the corner. And she can't speak because her lungs are filling up with blood and stuff like that. She dies right there. And I will say I don't like, it's almost like that scene in The Silence of the Lambs I've talked about before, where, like, there's just a jump the shark moment where, like, how would Hannibal Lecter actually be able to pull this off? The fact that they somehow got her strung up on the tree that quick. Climbing trees aren't that easy, especially if you're alone, like you were saying. If it's just one guy with a body climbing the tree and hanging it, like, how would that happen that fast? It just wouldn't.
I'm going to say maybe he set it up beforehand. Because he obviously had a plan. Knew the boyfriend was coming, going to tape him up in the backyard. So I'd say maybe before he got there, or maybe before he called her, he had a noose and he threw it over the tree branch.
Sure.
And so it's laying on the ground so he can just...
Sure.
I mimed pulling a rope for our listeners.
Either way, it's just one of those moments where, like, it stops and makes you think, but not necessarily, like, in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Just in, like, a... Well, you have to try to explain it for yourself. Kind of whatever. So anyways, opening scene. Good.
Also...
Really strong.
Really strong, also due to the fact that it's Drew Barrymore. One of the biggest movie stars on the planet, and she dies immediately. Like, I'm taking this from something I read or heard not too long ago about Scream. Drew Barrymore's on the fucking poster. And yeah, like it's a classic Hollywood, like a Psycho thing, where it's like, oh, someone that you think is here to stay, we're taking them out almost immediately.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, and I do like that to this day, even though I know who dies, there's just a feeling that, like, anybody could die, right? Like,
yeah, I
really genuinely feel that in this movie. Like, I don't really, other than Sidney Prescott, obviously she's safe, but yeah, I don't know. I always feel like. And it's a little on edge, more than other slasher movies.
It's one of those movies that every time I watch it, like you said, I know everything that happens in this movie, but when she's running up to that porch and she can't scream at her parents, I'm like, oh, just throw the phone. Throw the phone on the porch, they'll hear it, they'll look at you, you'll be safe.
You mentioned that Billy Loomis looks like Johnny Depp, and I actually, like, made a note about that he's, like, the dark, creepy, twisted version of Johnny Depp's character in that movie. Because Johnny Depp's character in that movie is pretty normal. He's just like a normal guy who wears, like, football cut-off sweaters and gets sucked into a bed. And anyways, but yeah, he's kind of like a fucked up, weird kid version of Billy Loomis.
Yeah.
Or not Billy Loomis, Johnny Depp. And I guess maybe just talk about strong scenes. There's also the scene where he comes to visit Sidney Prescott, Billy does, and he drops the cell phone.
Yes.
Right after she's been attacked by the ghost face.
Yeah. And I love, throughout this whole movie, like almost right off the bat, they're like, oh, it's this guy. And it's the classic slasher movie fake out, where they're like, ooh, this guy's bad.
Yeah.
He's the obvious candidate for the whole thing. And then, he gets killed at the end. So you're like, oh, fuck, I have no idea who it's going to be now. And it's him. It's him the entire time.
You know what I'll say, though? The cell phone's less suspicious to me, probably because we live in an age where there's cell phones everywhere, whatever. But the thing that always sticks out to me every time I watch it is it's way more unsettling that he just says he's gone. He's gone. He's trying to, like, comfort her by saying, like, oh, don't worry, he's gone.
No.
And that's one of those things where it's like, if my girlfriend was that upset about that kind of a thing, I don't think I would just go like, oh, well, I don't see anybody in the immediate vicinity, so he's gone, right? Like, let's say you're like trying to like lie or even like put yourself in that situation. Like, it'd be way more believable if he like, I don't know, opened up the door and like was looking around and was like, no, he's gone, don't worry. But the fact that he goes, oh no, shh, he's gone.
Yep.
That is the thing that really like is bone chilling to me.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's really fucked.
I also like earlier in that scene where he calls her as Ghostface. She says something along the lines of like, I don't like horror movies because it's some, big-chested bimbo who is running up the stairs and she should be running out the front door.
And then she immediately.
And then later, no, the door gets locked. She tries to go out the front door, it's locked, and she has to run up the stairs.
Yes,
like,
I forgot
that's so good.
that she has to do right. Excuse me. Trying to think of other scenes that really, is there anything that really like jumps out at you as like, oh, this is a great scene?
Yes, skipping to the end of the movie. Something I'd never noticed until we watched it this time is obviously they're watching Halloween at the party, but there's those scenes where he's creeping through the house and they play the Halloween music.
Yes.
Because it's technically diegetic. It's happening in the scene, but they pump it through all the way.
Well, you know
what?
I don't know if you're going to go there or not, but one thing that I really like is there's a scene that Billy Loomis can recognize by hearing it. And he realizes that it's the scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is hiding from the killer in the closet. And he walks past the closet, stops and thinks, Sydney's probably in here. And that's when he opens up the closet to check for her.
I didn't notice that. That's really good. That's really good.
And it's really, really, really good because one of the things that people always praise this movie for is like kind of being like, maybe ham food or whatever, but like a social critique also of just like how media saturated we all are, right?
Yeah.
All of these characters are constantly making references to, oh, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel. Or like, there's a formula. Don't you know the rules? And so like, I just love the fact that he could, reckon it.
So what I really love about this movie is that it's an homage, it's a critique, it's a spoof, whatever word you want to call it, for slasher movies. And anytime you get a movie like that, that's like, oh, we're paying homage to this thing, it always feels ham-fisted. It always feels a little overdone or underdone.
Or even like there's an air of like levity.
Yeah.
Or lightness or joking or like, oh, we're being a little silly. This is hardcore the whole time.
Yeah, because it's Wes Craven. Mm-hmm. He was there when these things were invented. He invented a lot of them. so it feels like him playing with those things, so it doesn't feel like someone else trying to recreate that.
Yes.
It feels like him being like, oh, I'm going to do this as good as possible to a science.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's we've had the conversation before where like I want to see The Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes, like the originals that he did. Because, that's a really nice thing about Scream 2. Not that this guarantees that it would work, but it's just a beautiful stars align moment where, yes, you have this horror master who continues to be a master of it and then gets to the point in his career almost like meta comedy. Yeah. Right? Where he can make a really, really good horror movie that's also table talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's making fun
without
of
it being
itself
corny
and you.
Yeah.
But also you're sold the entire time.
And there's another scene where they play a little bit with Halloween where Jamie Kennedy is sitting on a couch with the killer behind him saying, Jamie, right behind you. Come on, Jamie, turn around, Jamie, right behind you.
Yeah.
Right. So I also like that. There were a couple of things that also, like, I just think hit really, really nicely. Like, I've seen the movie before, so, like, I have a different experience, and obviously so do you and stuff like that. But, like, even when, like, the reporter, Gail Weathers, is talking to Sydney, and she's like, I think you put the wrong man in jail. And I'm like, get him, Gail. She did. And it's so sad also because you feel bad because, like, Sydney thinks for sure this is the guy that did it, but also you're like, yeah, you put Cotton in there for no reason. Fuck, what's his name? You making a murdered this guy. What's his fucking name?
Stephen Avery.
Yeah, you Stephen Avery Cotton.
Yeah. I get that, but also at the same time, hey, Gail, this is a child.
Yeah, that's also so beyond fair. Or like, it still hits so hard that like Sydney's having this like emotional breakthrough of like, you know what, you're right, I really, really do have to move on past my mom's death with the fucking guy who killed her mother. Yeah. Like there's so many little things in there. Like I haven't seen Last House on the Left, but I know it's fucked up and gruesome, and I know like Wes Craven was making movies, specifically horror movies, at a time where like you just went for it, like I Spit on Your Grave, a rape revenge movie, right? And there's so many of those like holdovers in this movie, right? Like the opening scene we talked about, like just being inches away from your parents as your like lungs are filled up with blood and you're screaming for your parents. I mean, you can't get any more physical embodiment of comfort than that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's safety, beyond safety, right?
Yeah.
And she's just dying right there. They're going to the house, they have no idea, right? And yeah, same thing with like that situation, right? Like it's almost the definition of irony, right? Where like you as the viewer, I mean, it's because I've seen it before, sure, but like you as the viewer know something that they don't know, kind of thing. So you're just sitting there and you're like, ah, fuck, this makes it so much more heavy, right?
Yeah.
But she's having this emotional breakthrough with like someone who should be an important person in her life, that for the rest of her life, and instead it's the guy who killed her mother.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a guy that she's going to kill in about 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, at the end, there's actually, like, I kind of like made a list of some of like the rules and the little references that I'm just going to rifle off. I don't know if it's going to be funny or not. I will say another like kind of table talky moment, like the foreshadowing of like the running out the door when they should be running, or running upstairs when they should be running out the door, and then the door is locked, so she has to do that. There's also the point where all the guys are sitting around watching Halloween and they're like, come on, where's the tit shot? You know, there's always got to be the obligatory tit shot. Then hard cut to Sydney taking off her bra, but it slowly pans so that Billy Loomis is covering it, right? So there's another little denial there. Also, the one that's very frequently pointed out is that one of Jamie Kennedy's rules is that only a virgin can kill the killer, and yet she loses her, you know, virginity right before killing the guy. I will also say I love, again, I think this is a really strong like script if it hasn't been abundantly clear. I love that like when the climax happens, it's like, I love the Gale Weathers like bumping into everything happening, right? Like she gets in the van, or maybe no, I think she starts with seeing Dewey, right? Dewey dies, so she runs to the van. Then she's like, oh, there's blood everywhere. Then Jamie Kennedy shows up, right, in the window, and she pushes him or something like that, or whatever, and he falls down, and then she like reverses real hard, and Ken slides down, right. And then she flies off and fucking runs into Sydney who's looking for help, and then gets into a car accident, right? And so like in this 45-second shot, you like kind of have that thing where like almost like Magnolia, where like everything converges, like everything you've been watching for the last 10 minutes just kind of comes together. I think that was great. And then I guess I would throw it your way because I've been going on for way too long. I love this movie a lot. Is there anything you want to make mention of real quick before I keep steamrolling ahead?
There are a few moments, only one I can think of off the top of my head, so I'm going to say one moment. That is one of those like, ooh, watching it a second time, I understand this now. First time you watch it, you're like, oh, these guys are just best friends. And they play it really well when they're in the video store. Jamie Kennedy's talking to Matthew Lillard, and he's like, that guy's the fucking killer. Your friend is the killer. And then he's behind him, he's like, oh, maybe it's you, and blah, 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 blah. And Matthew Lillard is just hanging on Jamie Kennedy's back. He's like, yeah, man, what if it is you? And when you watch it the first time, you're just like, okay, yeah, he's his boy, so he's standing up for him. And even when he walks away and Matthew Lillard's still on his back and just continues his conversation with Jamie Kennedy. But when you watch it again and you know it's both of them, you're like, oh no, it's the killers squeezing in on this guy together.
Yeah. I also like Jamie Kennedy a lot in this movie.
Jamie Kennedy?
Yeah, he's such a cute little nerd boy, you know?
Yeah. I had one more. I lost it. Give me one. Well, I think.
Well, I mean, the last thing I kind of want to talk about is just the big reveal at the end, right? Of who the killers are and just all of their dialogue. Just kind of talking about, like, you know, it's more scary when, like, you don't have a motive and whatnot, or like, oh, how about this? Is this motive enough for you? Your whore mom ruined my parents' marriage. That's why I did it, or whatever. Not even that I think that's exactly why he did it. I think he's just, you know, kind of, you know, doing the same thing that cheerleader is doing in the bathroom, where she's like, it's because this generation's brain is rotted out by whatever, and now she's looking for any way that she could possibly, right, where they're just kind of being pretentious, right? I think it's the same thing that he's doing there, where he's like, oh, what if it's this? Does that fit it enough? No. Really, at the end of the day, he's like, no, I'm just a fucking psycho.
Yeah, and I love when she's on the phone with Matthew Lillard later. She's like, so what about you? What is your... he's like, oh, peer pressure.
I'm way too sensitive. Yeah.
God, he's so... I love... Matthew Lillard's my favorite in this movie. because he's kind of funny throughout the whole thing. And then at the end where it's the two of them, like, ooh, I'm afraid of him. And then when he gets stabbed too many times, from then on, I'm like, funniest fucking guy in the movie.
But he's also, it's like a natural funny. He's not going for laughs. He's also serious. Like, it's still a really good performance.
Yeah, and he's kind of sad, but it's
funny.
so funny. Yeah.
It's so multi-layered. And again, like, just a moment of silence. I don't know if I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Matthew Lillard is an underrated actor.
I think it's the thing that's brought up the most on this podcast is how much we love Matthew Lillard.
I love Matthew Lillard. And this is a great example. That line with the whole, like, peer pressure thing, just the way he delivers where he's like, peer pressure, I'm far too sensitive. And that's a line that, like, it's even got the cadence kind of like even like a Marvel joke or something like that, like, right? Like, it's a little silly. It's almost like Twitter, that's where I get all my news, you know?
Yeah, it's like...
it works so well.
Everything from Matthew Lillard at that end is so good. Like when they're stabbing each other, obviously.
He's like, I think you cut me through the yellow woozy.
Yeah, he's like... he stabs Matthew Lillard. Matthew Lillard stabs him, and then he stabs Matthew Lillard like 6 times.
Yeah, and I like that because it's like a natural response. Like, Billy Loomis is a psycho who has no empathy, right? So he just got hurt, and he's like, fuck you, you piece of shit. Even though they already agreed, right? Like, the circumstances have changed in his head because he doesn't have any empathy, right? He's thinking, that was fucked up, you fucking bitch, you know?
Yeah,
and stabs him some more.
And, like, just thinking about it, just being like, okay, I'm prepared to get stabbed to do this. And so they get stabbed. It's like, ooh, that's fucked up that they can do this. And then he keeps stabbing Matthew Lillard, and Matthew Lillard's like, you have to stop, I cannot take anymore.
Yeah, there's like a point where he starts coughing out of his mouth just a little bit. You see a little bit of blood at first, and then eventually, obviously, his mouth is very bloody even.
Yeah, and he's like, Johnny Depp is like, oh, go get him. He's like, I can't, man, I think I lost too much blood.
Yeah, how about that scene where he's like, Houston, we have a problem. The gun, man, I put it right here. No, it's not. It was right here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes. Oh, did you really call the police? Bet your ass I did. Oh, my mom is going to be so mad. Yeah. And then I love when he takes the phone from him and he's talking to Sid. He's like, and he throws the phone. He's like, oh, you hit me with the fucking phone.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that kind of wraps up the bulk of what I have to say about it.
One thing I don't like about the movie, and I don't like it every time I see it, is she takes the time to put the costume on.
Doesn't ring a bell for me.
Johnny Depp is going around looking for her, and then she pops out of the closet and she stabs him with an umbrella, but she has the costume on.
Okay.
Dumb.
For some reason, that doesn't ring a bell in my mind.
Well, it happens.
So, yeah, and then there's a little bit of wrap-up. There's a couple more, like, oh, the killer always comes back from one last scare, you know.
And she's like, bang, not in my movie. It's like, yeah, okay, but he did, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, one of the first things that I wrote down in terms of movie references, maybe this will jog a memory in your mind. I don't remember exactly when it said, but there's a point where someone says something to the effect of, like, oh, that's dumb. You might as well go, oh, it's Ghostface in the first scene. He's like, or no. It's Drew Barrymore. She says, like, fuck. It's the line where they make fun of, like, doing the whole, who's there? Or, like, going and investigate. I think it's Ghostface that says it to her. He says something to the effect of, like, oh, don't do that. You might as well go, who's there? Or go to investigate a noise or something like that, right?
Okay, vaguely,
yeah. What else do we have? We also have, obviously, Billy Loomis gives a little bit of a speech. I don't like that too much, where he goes on about how, like, hey, I was watching The Exorcist at home, and I realized it was edited for TV, and all the good stuff was gone. As I was thinking about our relationship, and how it's kind of edited for TV, and, like, you know, I want to push for NC-17.
Oh, my God.
But,
that's the biggest thing about this movie. You brought it up. It's very much so a side of him being a psychopath and a narcissist. But when he's like, come on, your mom's been dead a year.
Yeah.
That is not enough time to get over your mom being dead. And I love her response is like, a year tomorrow.
Yeah. Then her best friend, Sophia
Rose McGowan.
Yeah.
Actor's name.
When she's talking about how Drew Barrymore was killed, she goes like, she was like splatter movie killed. Yes, you also mentioned the why would I watch a horror movie? They're all the same. You know, some big chested yada yada going upstairs when she goes out the door, yada yada yada. What else do we have? You have Matthew Lillard saying like, or one of their friends saying something to the effect of like, surprised he even wants to talk to you after you branded him the Candyman or whatever.
Yeah. I believe at one point, I'm sorry if you had this written down.
That's fine.
I noticed it on my own and
it's
didn't
time.
Have to write it down.
No, it's time.
Her friend says like, "Oh yeah, it's something out of like a Wes Carpenter movie or something." And I was like, "Yeah, okay."
That's funny. There's also Janitor Fred.
Yep, played by Wes Craven.
Stripes in the hat like Freddy Krueger. The conversation that you were talking about with the strong arming, the twerp.
Yep.
You know, where he gives the explanation that there's always a reason to kill your girlfriend, you know? If the motive is too complicated, you lose your audience, right? You know, talks about how there's a formula. If it were a horror movie, I'd be the prime suspect. You know, he also gives it's the millennium, you know, motives are incidental, right?
Yep.
When Sydney's best friend is getting murdered in the garage, she's like, "Oh, I spit on your garage."
Yeah.
Please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel. I already mentioned that one. You know, there's the whole life is a movie, life isn't a movie argument they have, where he's like, it's all one great big movie, but you can't pick your genre. I do like that you can't pick your genre line. I think that's not bad.
Yeah.
More than the whole, like, oh, our relationship is edited for TV thing that Billy Loomis did earlier.
So his last name is Loomis.
Yeah. There's also the chat about the blood in Halloween being too red. It's all wrong. You know, it's all predictable. I want to see breasts. When do we get to see breasts? Right, and then Jamie kicks off into his rules. He gives 3 rules. You remember the 3 rules?
No sex, no drugs or drinking, and don't say I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I read this one. Happens at the beginning of the movie. Drew Barrymore's parents come home. Mm-hmm. The dad goes, take the phone, go to the Mackenzies, call the police. In Halloween, when he
That's
breaks
what she
it,
says to the little boy.
She goes, go to the Mackenzies' house.
Mackenzie's, yeah, because it's across the street. Yeah. We all go a little mad sometimes. What is that one? That one's fucking...
Oh.
We all go a little mad sometimes. That might be Silence of the Lambs or some shit. I can't remember offhand.
Keep reading, I'll look it up.
No, go ahead. When Billy Loomis talks about faking dying earlier, it's corn syrup. It's what they used for the pig's blood and Carrie. You know, he also gives the explanation for, you know, his idea to murder is watch a couple movies, take a couple notes.
It's Psycho.
It's Psycho. There you go. Yeah, Psycho. So this is also a movie where they say the title of the movie a couple of times, but in this very specific one,
scream, yeah.
Yeah, but they also say it. There's a point where like Matthew Lillard goes like, "And you're gonna love this, baby. It's a scream."
Oh yeah.
So there you go. That's what I'm gonna consider them using the title. That's the one line I'm gonna consider. They also say kind of, you know, black humorishly like these days you gotta have a sequel or whatever, right? Because they say we get to live on for the sequel because we get to have to. Then there's also a point where Sydney throws it back in their face during the climax and she says, "You've seen one too many movies, right? Don't blame the movies," or something like that, right? There's also that little bit. And then obviously we mentioned the dead killer comes back for one more scare thing, right? And so those were all of the little references that I try to keep a little track of.
I wish you told me you were taking notes.
Oh, because the last time we talked, you said like, "Oh, I was thinking about keeping a little bit of notes." So I did a similar thing where like I didn't write down every fucking thing that happened or everything like that. I was like, for this one, I'm just gonna make note of every little in joke they make.
All right. Well, then I'll listen to myself more often, I guess.
Yeah, you have good ideas. I didn't mean to shoot you down. Did it feel like I shot you down?
No, you just had way more than I did. I feel.
No, I mean like when we had our initial conversation about you taking
No.
notes. Okay. Just making sure I wasn't crushing you.
So then we immediately watched Scream 2.
Well, before we move on,
Ugh.
you want to wrap it up in any way, or even give it a grade, perhaps?
I'll give Scream an A.
I'll give it an A.
It's great.
It's great.
I'm blown away
I'm
by you
still
bringing
blown
it
away.
up that I never noticed that he checks the closet. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it's really good because they even cut to the screen and showed Jamie in the closet to give like the audience context. So
I remember them cutting to that, but I never picked up that he opens the closet. Like
it's almost as good as the Hal scene you're describing, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
show
go
don't
back.
tell. Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. That's so good.
Yeah, and I it's almost a little like I'm fine with it, totally comfortable with who I am, but look at how much I had to say and how enthusiastically I had to say it about Scream as opposed to my own private.
Yeah.
So Scream. Oh yeah, Scream 2. We watched it immediately after. And I'm going to take the lead for just a second because I just want to get this out. I've just been biting my tongue the whole time. It's been so long, even though I had a very similar experience with Scream to you, right? Like I've seen Scream 1 so many times. There was a point where I was a kid and my uncle had like the box set and I was like, I'm watching all 3. And I watched all 3 and I've never seen 2 or 3 ever again. Just the one time.
Yep.
Not that they're awful. It was just like it didn't leave enough of an impression on me as a kid, right? But you were like, fuck it, let's watch the second one. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it, let's watch the second one. And in general, mixed bag. We can get into it, but I did like that on this watch. It had been so long that I was like, "Oh fuck, who is the killer?"
Yeah, I thought that too. And then I was like, ugh, because I can like picture all of them.
I can picture the third act so well. But
Yeah.
I was like, I can't picture anybody being there besides Cotton. So for a long time, I was like, is it Cotton?
Yeah, and then eventually one character goes away for way too long.
Yeah,
And another small character starts showing up a lot for no reason. I'm like, oh, right, it's them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was tipped off probably mostly that Timothy Oliphant is in the movie. Because he is just a sinister-looking man.
Yeah.
And they play him as a nice, good guy who just is of no consequence at all. Mm-hmm. And like I said, just disappears for the last like hour of the movie until the very end.
Yeah. Which I'm going to say overall, this movie has like a handful of scenes I truly, genuinely love. But as a whole, falls flat in my opinion. That's how I'm feeling about it.
Yeah. How do you feel about... Sorry, go on.
Go ahead. No, hit it.
How do you feel about the opening?
The opening is... Yes, I think mixed baggy because there are things that I like about it, but then also like, it kind of feels like it just kind of follows the formula of the first one. Like they wanted something that's really going to like get you in the start. So it's like, oh, murder in the movie theater, which is a great idea. And I love that nobody knows if it's real at first and stuff like that. But it's spotty is what I'd say.
Yeah, I like that it is like you were saying. As a child, saw that fucking Ghostface mask everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I like the whole, like, yeah, everybody has this mask. Yeah, they're passing it out at the movie theater. But yeah, just seeing a bunch of people use it, wearing one was cool. But also that at the same time, that fucking movie theater, people just screaming and standing up and throwing shit and stuff like that.
It's like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Never in a million years. Yeah, I guess like Rocky Horror Picture Show where you're going to go and get that. But
yeah.
I know it's suspension of disbelief, but
yeah,
just the entire time I'm like, no, absolutely not.
Then there's also a lot of commentary about black representation in horror movies and stuff like that. And it's obvious they tried to sprinkle in a couple more people of color here and there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there was some kind of backlash about how white the first one or something like that, but there's like 12 times the amount of POC characters in this.
Oh yeah,
film.
I think probably even more than that.
Yeah.
It was. We brought up when we were watching it. I don't think either of us said it while we watched the first one, but I was like, no black people in this movie. And then the second one, it's just immediately. Yeah, they're just like.
There's nothing wrong with that other than it feels like they're overcompensating.
Yeah, especially because none of them are main characters. They're just sprinkled in the background. It's like, okay.
Kind of reminds me of, I think it was a tweet that I saw, which is, on a side note, I actually saw, I think it was like a reductress line that was like, politically motivated woman, political leanings, now just an amalgam of tweets by people she doesn't remember.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But anyways, it was a tweet talking about how like sitcoms will do that, right? To try to quote unquote diversify, they'll sprinkle POC like extras in the background, but it ends up having this effect of like, since the main characters are all white and they never interact with these characters of color, it creates another world that also reflects the real world where races intentionally, especially like white people, don't necessarily like, they might not have an outward problem with characters of color, but they also don't interact with them.
Yeah.
Right. So anyways, besides all that kind of stuff, that was just I would say in the stall, I said it out loud, I still stand by it. That's a real hard stab to stab through a stall like that.
Oh yeah, through his brain and the wall. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's another one of those examples of just like kind of making him superhuman.
Yep. Yeah, also to guess where his head was.
Yeah. But I do like the the fact that like immediately after he like kind of like peers around the corner to make sure the other guys are like leaving the stall or the bathroom or whatever, because that's more realistic. But the stab through the stall, I didn't like that. And then also there's like I feel like another layer of, because obviously this is all commentary on horror still. the fact that like she's up there and she's bleeding, and I think it's obviously in and of itself the fact that it's blurring the lines, you know, kind of being a kind of like they don't know what's real and what's fake kind of a thing, and you know the idea being that like you can make that argument just like the first one does kind of to a degree with like you watch so many movies at a certain point like what's real and fake, kind of blurring the lines, right? But then everybody does realize, and I like that they all have empathy and they realize what's going on kind of a thing, because initially I was thinking like, oh, it's almost like she's standing there and she's actually experienced this and no one cares because they're so desensitized because of what's going on. But I like that it didn't go that far with being cynical, you know, the fact that once people realize what's going on they do still care. I do like that.
Oh, at the end of this movie, Timothy Olyphant and Billy Loomis's mother, they're doing this to get back at Sydney, to get back at these kids for what they did to her son.
Yeah, why kill anybody else then, I guess?
Why kill two people in a movie theater?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, was that him?
Why kill anybody other than Sydney, I guess, kind of. I mean, I guess to like play mind games with her and scare her or something.
Yeah.
But
like in the first one, we get that he's psychotic.
Yeah.
But also everyone he's killing makes sense.
Yeah.
Even Drew Barrymore, they make an offhanded comment that they used to date, and she left him for somebody else. But yeah, just two people in the movie theater doesn't really make sense.
I know it's not necessarily too complicated in the sense of the motivation, right? Like the motivation is revenge, but it reminds me of that quote from the first one where it's like, oh, you make it too complicated and you lose your audience. It's not complicated on the front end, but it's obviously complicated on the back end, right? Which is like, this is a weird way to go for revenge, kind of, right? Like let's take another example of revenge as the motivation for a serial killer. Friday the 13th. She's getting revenge because the camp counselors were fucking around and her kid died, right? But it's the camp counselor, so it makes sense why there'd be a body count because she's killing all of them, right? Whereas like this one, it's like, well, you want revenge on Sydney, so you're killing all of these like new college acquaintances she has that she doesn't care about, and you're killing random people in a movie theater. You know what I mean? Like, you're not doing a good job of the revenge things. You haven't necessarily killed anybody she even cares about. It's just a string of basically strangers. Like, she doesn't know the woman who's home alone watching the sorority house even.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Why do that?
Yeah.
You know, what was the point of that? And I guess you could argue this. I think the reporter was... how do they even meet? Right? How does the reporter meet Timothy the Olyphant and then they decide together that this is a good idea? Right, because I was going to say the explanation being that maybe Timothy Olyphant was immediately, because he's the psycho, right? He just wants to reenact the movie. That's all he wants. So sure, maybe he goes and kills the movie theater. Maybe he kills the sorority girl, right? But what's the point where, like, they meet and the reporter's like, we must team together.
I think they say something about meeting on, like, a forum or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, I can't remember.
Well, ultimately what I'm saying is this is the example of how it is too complicated. So I think the quote from the first movie works here.
Yeah, also, his plan he said his plan was, oh, I'm going to go to jail, I'm going to go to trial, and I'm going to say movies made me do it, and I'm going to get out scot-free. Yeah.
So that does explain why all the murdering happened. That doesn't have to do with Sydney Shore. And maybe the reporter just came in just for the sake of getting revenge at the very end, you know. But all I'm saying is it's a little watery and, like, weak.
Oh, for sure.
You know. Maybe don't have the reporter and it's fine. I like the idea of just a psycho. Like, that's better commentary, in my opinion, of just the whole thing where he's like, I want to be famous. Especially because it's really culturally relevant in terms of, like, that's how most people view, like, mass shootings these days.
Yeah.
You know.
But you gotta have two killers again, because the first one had two killers.
Yeah, I don't like that. I think they really should have went with one killer.
Yeah.
I really, really do. Because that reporter didn't add anything to me. Other than baggage and weakening your product, watering it down.
It's just another twist. Ooh, I didn't expect it to be this person.
This reporter, yeah. All right, eat my whole butt. Well, let's talk a little bit about things that did work. I think that cop car scene, tense as shit.
Yeah.
Up until the weird jump that we talked about when we were talking about Scream.
Yeah.
Where, like, he's... You know, you were talking about how he's out for too long, or how he shows up, it punches the window out into the cop, and how he disappears kind of and then reappears and kills her friend. But the whole thing where, like, they have to, like, pry it back, and she, like, tries the door and it's, like, jammed, and then she realizes she has to go across, and she stops to, like, check the mask, but then she, like, elbows the horn a little bit, and she's like, I just gotta get out of here. And then she goes to open the door for her friend, but it won't
it's
open, so now
locked,
her
yes,
friend
she's
has to
gotta
do the
do it too.
same shit.
Yeah.
Great scene. It's
But-
one of those things where, like, Wes Craven's just doing what he does best, you know?
But also, just logistically, think about seeing a car with 4 people in it, being like, I'm going to kill all 4 of these people in this moving car with a knife.
Yes.
It's...
No, I agree with you. Everything surrounding it is bad, but that specific scene where they have to get out of the car works.
Absolutely. But I'm so hung up on it. And then for the most part, can't really think of too much more of the killings. I think maybe when he's on the phone and they're running around campus looking for who's on the phone, that kind of works.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Jamie Kennedy.
Which, on a side note, reminds me of the caller ID scene.
Yeah.
I love that almost immediately. Like, it's immediately after the kind of, like, weird vignette beginning, there's the cold open of her just getting another call and her being like, him being like, you don't even know who I am. And she's like, you're Jerry Livingston of Ohio Town, Ohio. And he's like, oh, what?
Yeah, apparently, like, something like 900% the sales of caller ID machines went up after the first Scream came out. And yeah, I do. That's a nice little added touch where it's like, ooh, this gimmick isn't going to work anymore for this movie.
Yes. And I like that. Again, it's like, kind of meta table talking without being corny, right? Like, it's just them being like, yeah, caller ID exists now. Totally.
I like when Gale and Dewey, who I'm surprised we haven't mentioned yet.
Did we even mention him in the first one?
We did not. No, we didn't talk about Dewey at all.
Well, he's WWE champ.
WWE champ David Arquette.
I like Dewey.
I like Dewey, too.
I like Dewey a lot.
He's just a hometown cop kicked by a horse as a child.
Is that what the story is?
It's gotta be, right?
I do like in the first movie, he's got I like the line a lot where, like, she says, like, I do really well with 18 to 24-year-olds or whatever.
Yeah, she's like, oh, you do
And
watch
she's
my
like, you do
show.
watch that. And he goes, ma'am, I'm 25. I was 24 for a whole year.
It's great.
Yeah. So cute.
I like when they are checking the footage that they got to see if they can find the killer.
Yeah.
And then the other TV turns on, and it's like, oh, this is the killer's footage. Oh, no, and it keeps flipping through and flipping through.
Which also ties well into Timothy Oliphant, or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Because he's film major, got a camera.
And then the very last shot is them.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, that's good. That's very good.
You cut up there, and it's Ghostface work on the projector. That's a little comical, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like the IMs in the...
the library
scene. Because, yeah, again, like, you don't know who you're looking for. Could be anyone in there. Could easily get out, too.
Yeah.
It's just so out in the open. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, you know, just kind of basic Stalker 101. Undermine your general sense of security, which is actually a false sense of security because you're really not safe anywhere.
I thought all the cotton stuff was weird.
Yeah.
I guess he's a good added layer for, like, another person that could potentially be the killer, but I do like when Gale gets out of this situation right after reviewing the footage, and she runs into him, and he's covered in blood. He's like, I just found Dewey. And she's like, oh, no. And she runs, and he's like, shit. It's great. Just, there's no way I'm getting out of this one.
On a side note, I will say I want to take it back a little bit about the reporter, but again, I just don't think it works. I actually really like that the reporter's thing is that, like, and everywhere in the media, it's blame the parents, blame the parents, blame the parents. So I like that a little bit, but again, I just don't think they do enough with it. It doesn't work.
Comes out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But I do like that idea of, like, do something with that.
Yeah.
Don't just mention it at the end and expect me to think that that's...
Yeah.
a good story.
Ugh.
But anyways, to go back to what we were talking about.
It's like, to go back to what we were talking about, reverse Yahtzee on you, or reverse Uno on you.
I don't remember what we were talking about. Do you?
No, I'm going... this is taking too long. To go back to what you were just saying about the twist, it is the worst kind of twist in a movie. Where they're like, twist. And now it makes sense for a bunch of stuff I'm going to tell you that you would have no possible fucking way of understanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a good twist, but I guess I couldn't have seen that coming because you were lying to me.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not as much of a sin in this movie. In fact, I'm not even complaining about it, but like I know I've heard reviewers talk about how, like, maybe the twist in Friday the 13th would work a little bit better if, like, Mrs. Voorhees was a character in the movie before that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of how I feel about the reporter is like, okay, you just lied to me. You told me she was a reporter the whole time. I'm not necessarily surprised that she's Billy Loomis's mom because I didn't give a fuck about her. She was just a reporter who keeps bugging Gail. Like,
yeah.
Almost if it was, like, what if it was Billy's mom and Billy's mom was treating Sydney the same way that Cotton was, right? And so you've just got this, like, storm of, like, she's starting college and now Gail's bringing Cotton into her life and this, you know, Billy's mom's tracked her down and keeps harassing her too, right? And she's got all these things she's worrying about, but instead, I don't think the movie does a
also
job of that.
She would know what Billy's mom fucking looks like.
100%, yeah.
She was her mom was fucking her husband, and also she walked out of them like a year ago. There's no way she doesn't know what Billy Loomis's mom looks like.
Is it Billy's or is it Matthew Lillard's mom?
It's Billy's mom.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because she's like, "Cause your whore mother slept with my husband."
Ah, right. There was one other strength I wanted to give it. Baba Booey. Yeah, I think that might be it. To go back to Scream 1, though.
Please.
Something I forgot to mention was, like, the other thing that's really, really, really cool about Scream over other slasher movies is, like, and I think I touched on it briefly when I was talking about, like, oh, man, like, I feel like anyone could die, right? Well, why is that? Because I actually care about these characters.
Yeah.
Which is a rarity in horror movies, but especially slasher movies. My God, is it a rarity in slasher movies.
They're just usually just dumb teenagers that you just kind of hate because they're going to die anyway. Yeah.
And Scream does have, like, the archetypes, right? Like, you know, Billy Loomis, in the script at least, was supposed to be the jockey type, and then Matthew Lillard was kind of supposed to be, like, the funny stoner type, and, you know, Jamie's the nerd, you know, and Sydney's the virgin with her girlfriend being the polar opposite, the quote-unquote, like, slut who sleeps around or whatever. But they're all interesting, three-dimensional. I like them, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, to go back to the second one. Yeah, I don't know what else I really have to say about it. I guess I can give it points for the Omega Beta Zeta kill scene. Because there's two neat things that happen in that, which I like.
Completely forgot about that.
The fact that the phone stops working when she's on the porch, kind of a thing, right? So she has to go back in the house if she wants to get help. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless she wants to, like, just run to a neighbor's house, which she also has the obligation to be there because if anyone calls drunk, so she can give them a ride home, right? That's the whole reason why she's home in the first place.
That feels like second priority if you're being stalked.
Yes. And then there's that scene where she goes back inside so you can try to make and she hears the noise upstairs kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. And then, like, it turns out someone is home, but they're not upstairs. They're in the living room kind of a thing. And at that point, I don't think I'd let her off the hook that easy. I would have been like, hey, bitch, listen. I heard a noise upstairs. Let's go check it out together. But instead, she's just like, oh, have fun at the party. And ignores the weird call. Like, if I have a weird call like that and hear a noise in the house, I'm sorry. I'm asking you to drop whatever you're doing, like, or I'm calling the cops, or what she tried to do. She tried to call the security. But, like, I'm definitely, like, if you came to the door and you're like, oh, shit, I forgot my watch. I'm like, yeah, also stay for a second, because I just heard some shit in the attic right after I got a weird call.
Yeah, no, what I really like about that, too, is, her friend's there. It feels a little bit safe for a second, and the phone rings again, and her friend answers it.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, hold on a second. She goes, it's Dylan. And she goes, okay. Well, you know, be safe, this and that. She's like, okay, don't forget to lock the door. And then she shuts it. And she picks up the phone. She's like, it's not Dylan. Mm-hmm. Don't forget to lock the door. It's like, oh, fuck, he heard your conversation you just had. He's in the house.
Yeah, but again, before that, I wouldn't even be like, oh, hey, friend, have a good time later. I would have been like, hey, bitch, I don't care if it is Dylan. You got to stick around for a quick second.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Also, Dylan, you should probably hear this too.
Yeah. There was just a guy on the phone. It's me again. Oh, my God. So glad I told you not to go to the party yet. So yeah, overall, you got closing statements. You want to wrap it up? You want to grade it?
I don't like it.
Don't like it?
It has its moments, but overall, I'd give it a C-.
Yeah, I was thinking C territory.
Yeah,
because like I said, there's that handful of like 4 or 5 scenes where I'm like, I like this, or even like smaller subsets of the scene where I'm like, this works really well, but the bulk of it is just messy, spotty, and kind of a diluted version of what the first one was.
Yeah,
you know.
I'm excited to watch 3 because I'm doing that. And I've never seen 4. Screw 4 'em.
Neither have I.
5's coming out soon.
I've never seen Fan 4 Stick either.
I don't remember much of it, but I saw it and went, that was bad. That was the end of it.
I've also never seen Chronicle, but they're making a Chronicle too.
Are they?
Yep.
Max Landis wrote Chronicle.
He did. He's also on an episode of the X-Files that I've refused up until this point to listen to, but it's the X-Cops one. It's the one where the cops has a crossover with the X-Files.
Oh, no.
So I don't want to hear them talk about that, but I also don't really want to hear Max Landis talk.
There's an episode of Red Letter Media where they talk about Neil Breen. He's basically like the new Tommy Wiseau. And I want to hear them talk about those movies, but they got fucking Max Landis with them.
Maybe one day I will, because sometimes I'm like, I should listen to some X-Files files, and I'm like, there is that one episode I haven't seen, and I'm like, I just can't do it.
Yeah, that guy's a legit monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways. Anyone else had a third movie? Scream.
I was trying to do a bit. Couldn't think of one.
Yep.
Scream 3. That's 3 screams for you.
Okay. Starring
Liev Schreiber, and
he's the Drew Barrymore of this movie.
he's the Drew Barrymore of this movie. Yeah.
That's the one convention I think they flipped in this one,
Yeah.
because I don't think they flipped anything else. I could be wrong.
Did they have a Drew Barrymore in the second one? Oh yeah, Jada
Yeah.
Pinkett Smith. Yeah. We're just Jada Pinkett at
But this time it's a man.
But this time it's a bro. Also starring.
And it's the bro.
Liev Schreiber's the bro.
Yes.
I'm confused. I'm not picking up what you're
Just
putting
an
down.
affectionate, call him, like the guy.
Oh, okay.
Or the dude.
Yeah, Liev, I thought you were saying like he's the. I'm like, no, the other guy's the bro.
No, I just like him.
Yeah, no, he's the bro.
I like him.
He's the dude. Also starring Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox Arquette and David Arquette and
WCW champion.
WCW champion David Arquette with special guest appearance by Jamie Kennedy. I don't know if you caught that, but in the credits it says special guest appearance by Jamie Kennedy.
I just want to take it from the top for a minute. Starting off, I hate that the killer can now mimic the voices.
Hold on, start out from the top. I hate this movie.
Yeah. I did not like this
Yeah, this movie sucked butts.
Did not like that part.
It was fun to watch. It was a good fun, make fun of this movie type thing.
Just because that technology doesn't exist, and I know that that's not a thing that you have to worry about in movies, but when it's the third movie in a series that's been grounded in reality the whole time, yeah, it is. It's something that's going to annoy me. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, if that showed up in Back to the Future, it'd be no big deal. If that showed up in Star Wars, it'd be no big deal, but...
I mean, I don't think voice changers like the ones they use in the other two movies exist, where it turns your voice into that one
totally
specific
different
voice.
Yeah.
And also, there are a lot of times...
But again, it's established from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly.
You know?
So, to me, that's not that big of a leap. But what did bother the fucking shit out of me is at the end, when there's like the big face-off between her and him before he rips off the mask and he's talking to her, it's the voice. It's the ghost face voice.
Yeah.
But he's not holding anything. He's just speaking like that.
Yeah. I will say I also have I take umbrage with the fact that he gets up from being stabbed in the heart and then runs at them and she has to shoot him in the head to kill him. I know that they talked earlier and Jamie Kennedy was like, he's supernatural this time.
He had a bulletproof vest on.
Yeah, but getting stabbed in the heart's getting stabbed in the heart. That's like insta-death.
True, I don't think you can stab through a bulletproof vest.
Also, yes.
I don't think it's instant death. I think you got a couple of minutes.
I don't think you do with the heart. I think if the heart gets fucked, you're fucking pretty much done.
I mean, you're done, but I think you got a little bit more time to get up and stab someone else.
I don't know.
I mean, neither do I, but I'd assume your blood's got to pump out the last of its blood. Or not pump out, but slowly die.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. So this movie starts with a car chase.
Yeah. The other thing, again, like I said, I wanted to kind of start from the top and just talk about the things I hate, not necessarily in chronological order, but it is the top, and it never really comes up again. But Cotton's got the #1 like talk show in the country.
Yeah.
Again, that's just weird to me.
The #1 like crime talk show, I think.
I don't think it's crime. They're talking. Well, I guess so. They're talking about road rage.
Okay. I mean, that I buy. We were talking about it. I think.
Rubs me the wrong way.
What's his name? Can't think of his name. Can't think of his daughter's name. But it was a very high-profile murder of a child. Mm-hmm. And that girl's father was the host of America's Most Wanted for a very, very long time, and he was famous for that.
Yeah, but they show a clip of his show. It's very clearly not that kind of a thing. It's just like Oprah or something, like The View.
Yeah, I know,
weird.
but it's somebody somebody who is involved in a true crime becoming a celebrity.
Yeah.
I buy that. And that's kind of his goal at the end of 2. He's talking about it all through 2. So it happened for him. I'm happy for him until he dies. I can't... Oh, yeah. And then the plot of this movie is them making Stab 3, which is about the events of Scream 1, which you'd think that would be what Stab 1 was about, right?
Wait, what's the third one about now?
They're filming Stab 3.
Yeah, and it's basically the same movie they already made, because when they're doing Stab 1 and the second one, it is the first one. It's them recreating scenes from the first one.
So what are they doing for Stab 3?
It looks like they're back in Woodsboro, but we never really see any clips, so I can't really discern which one it is.
Are they just winging it?
They might be just winging it.
Okay, so they're making a news story where they gotta go back to Woodsboro and like...
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, there's also that thing where like we've discussed privately the fact that like there are attempts by this new writer to try to be kind of meta.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, another one of my gripes is just like was making the movie they're making Stab 3 just because you're making the third one, because there wasn't a second one yet.
I feel like this movie would have worked a lot better if it was Scream 2.
Yeah.
I think if the plot of Scream 2 is that they're making this movie, and you could get meta that way.
Yeah.
And it was written by Kevin Williamson instead of John Thoroughbred or whatever
his name's like Kruger or something.
Okay.
Timothy Kruger, maybe? I don't know.
I think that could have maybe worked better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the premise of like them making the movie,
because the movie has
guess
the Stab movie has nothing to do with Scream 2. They show it at the beginning and then that's it.
Yeah. I also, one of the complaints I had was that he is kind of supernatural, but again, they acknowledge it with the Jamie Kennedy thing, so I guess that's fine. But then he also acknowledges the whole like, oh, something fundamental is gonna change, and like as soon as he said that, I was like, oh god,
yeah,
the killer's gonna be her fucking brother, especially with all the shit going on with her mom and the clues that are being left, and the fact that now everybody's suddenly like, oh my god, she was in Hollywood for a year.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh, disgusting.
I was
hate it.
not fine, but I was okay with all of that until he's like, yeah, and then I found Billy Loomis and I convinced him to do this. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, so you're making Scream 1 bad now?
To me, it's just a whole movie of, like, instead of acknowledging, commenting on, subverting, tropes and cliches and things that instead the movie's just kind of like name dropping other movies and then also like tripping over the tropes and ending up like right where every other horror movie is. Yeah, just a big bummer all around. And something else I brought up while we were watching the movie is we were probably like a half hour in and I was like, who do you like in this movie?
Yeah, nobody. Everybody in the movie is just the worst.
Yeah, and there's so many points also where like characters will find something and then they'll go like like they just found out a clue, and then me and you would look at each other and basically go, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when they're like, these were all taken on the same like lot in Paramount or something, and they're like,
we gotta go there right now.
Why? Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, Sydney
Why?
says that. She's like, she says, can you take me there right now? And I was like, oh, why?
What are you gonna? This was 30 years ago.
You think the killer like hit another clue there or something? Is this?
Also, it's a movie set. They probably destroyed or moved it.
Yeah, and do they ever actually end up going specifically to that, and it looks the same anyway or something like that?
No, I don't know.
Because then there's a point where like I know they're on the lot and Sydney goes piss, but for some reason, even though she's not supposed to be out of anyone's sight, she goes piss in the back of a not in use lot where like Woodsboro was set up.
I don't know. Yeah, that was really
like, how did she get there? And then when she leaves the bathroom, she's surprised she's in Woodsboro.
Yeah, no.
How the fuck did you get to the bathroom?
Yeah, exactly. I think one of us made the joke when it happened. She's in the bathroom, and you pointed out that it's the same gross soap dispensers from the first movie, and it looks exactly like the bathroom, the high school bathroom, the first movie. And she walks out, and she's on the set of the other things, and I'm like, do you think she just took a dump in a prop toilet?
Welcome to Jackass 3. Yeah. I also really this is the one thing that I like about this movie.
Ooh.
I love the idea of her being on the set and then getting attacked. Yeah. That's great.
Do that for, like I said, this movie would have worked better as Scream 2, I think.
Yeah, because I think Scream 2's backbone being like, they're in college now, is fine from like a realistic standpoint of like, okay, that's what they would do next. But I definitely think Kevin Williamson, with some elements from the second one and some of those elements from the third one, would have made a great sequel. And they probably never should have made a third one. They probably just should have made a really good second one. But again, this is hindsight speaking and whatnot.
And 5 comes out soon, so.
Yeah. And we have to track down 4. But I really do like that. It's kind of surreal, and it's obviously like traumatizing, right? Yeah. It's almost like, in a video game, like how sometimes you might actually play through a level that's like your character re-experiencing a moment. It really creates this interesting like. Yeah, like I like when she's in the house and like she's getting chased and she does a thing where she's like, oh, right, door, I can open this closet door and it's like she's like been this, there. Like, yeah. But then it ends up being on the first floor, so we can just come into the window, right? Yeah. So it's one of those things where like it's uncanny. Yeah, is what it is. It's familiar, but something's different. Yeah, exactly. And that's great. Yeah, and that's exactly kind of what I think a sequel should do, because there's a degree to which you have to deliver what people want, but then it should be a little different. Yeah. Also, thinking about being in 2002. When did this movie come out? 2000. We'll call it 2002. Sure. And you're watching Scream 3, and she walks on the set, and it's like, blah, 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 and it, like, gets that shot of the house. I'd probably be like, is that the house from the first one? Oh, I guess it's the house from the first one. Yeah. Which is really funny that you bring that up, because, I love the first 3 Frankenstein movies. They're kind of a trilogy, even though there are a couple more sequels, but people don't usually consider those kind of canonical, I guess. But yeah, there are like huge kind of like continuity jumps. Like, for example, the way that Frankenstein's lab looks from the exterior even changes dramatically from film to film. But it's exactly what you were talking about, where it's like moviegoers saw that movie and then it left the theater, and then the next time you made your movie, it didn't matter that much, because exactly. You say, hey, it's Frankenstein's laboratory, and everybody goes, cool. So more stuff that I hate about this film. I hate, but also I love the scene where they're I hate Patrick Warburton, or whatever the fuck his name is in this movie. Warburton, yeah. Love him as a guy, love him and shit, but I hate this role for him. Yeah, he's awful. He's just a douchebag, and that's supposed to be kind of funny, I guess. But instead, the whole time, I'm just like, why are you being an asshole to one of the characters I really like, actually? And but then they end up in that house, and like they keep like frantically being like, everybody outside. Oh, the fax is going on. All right, everybody inside. Oh, back outside. Back inside. Hate it, but also it's kind of funny. Yeah. I don't know if it's supposed to. Weren't you reading that like they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna focus more on the comedy for this movie? Yeah, the studio wanted them to lean into the comedy because of Columbine. Yeah, okay. I think that was the big reason why they moved into Hollywood instead of Woodsboro, because again, it was that thing where it's like, oh, a small town getting butchered. Columbine just happened in a small town. Okay, yeah. Let's forget about it, I'd say the only quote unquote comedy moment that worked for me is them running inside and outside, and outside. It's very funny. I will say, props to this movie, I guess, a little bit, that the kind of main plot ends up being a girl goes to Hollywood and gets sexually assaulted in order to forward her career, and then she ends up having a kid about it, and then every other actress making an offhand. It is played for laughs at this point, which sucks, but like pretty much every actress is like, ugh, I can't believe I slept with that guy for this, or ugh, can't believe I fucked that guy to get that part, or whatever. And then the movie ends and it says produced by Harvey Weinstein. Yeah. So that's fun. Yeah, interesting that it was produced by and there was no point where he was like, hey guys, ixnay, but I think that speaks to just how like much of an open secret it was. Yeah. It's, it almost reminds me, although it's it's so different. It is so different. But It's kind of like the way that like people like always just kind of like, hey, don't drop the soap. Like they even make that joke in SpongeBob.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like wild that everybody just says it and nobody ever goes like, hey, wait a minute. I'm sorry, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know? But well, I mean, maybe I should try to examine for other things that I do like. Is there anything else you can think of liking? You like that one scene where she goes into the room and there's all those ghost faces.
Yeah, there's all the ghost-faced costumes up in there, which I liked in theory. It didn't end up being anything worthwhile, because then I immediately remembered, oh, wait, this is how Scream 2 starts. They're in the movie theater full of a bunch of ghost faces.
Much better, too. It's a diluted version of that. Just like I will say, the whole idea that, like, whoa, whoever's calling, it might not actually be the person they think they're talking to, is just a diluted version of, like, is this character dreaming right now? Which is what Nightmare on Elm Street does.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where like it never ends up actually working because every time like things are a little off in the phone call, I'm like, oh, okay, it's the killer.
Oh, every time someone talks to someone else on the phone, they're talking to the killer.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, there's no normal conversations in the film. So they do a very bad job of burying that lead. And then on that same topic, there was something else I was just meaning. Oh, yeah, real quick, just another thing, another sin this movie commits, in my opinion, is the thing where they make all of the actor characters just insufferable for some reason. I feel like movies that are about like actors trying to break in the biz that aren't the main characters, they always do that thing where they're like, oh, you're just mad because she fucked him better than you and got a better role or whatever. And it's like, well, why? I don't like these people. I don't relate to them. I hate them.
Yeah.
Get them off the screen. Why would you do this to them? They could have just been normal people.
Mm-hmm. Or not in this movie.
Yeah. Also, yeah, we probably did have to have that. Because then the movie does that weird thing where they like buddy up. I guess it's specifically Gail, but like for some reason Gail just has like her protege with her the whole time, kind of.
Yeah, the girl who plays her in the movie. Yeah.
And it just seems so out of character because I feel like at a certain point, actually at every point possible, Gail would have been like, hey, get the fuck away from me. Stop. You helped me get into that room. Now get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I feel like that would have been in line with her character.
Yeah, they do that for 10 minutes maybe.
And then eventually she's like, fine, get in the car.
And then they're the best of friends, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, they keep like alluding to the fact that the girl who plays Sydney in the movie
might be the killer. But every time she shows up, I'm like, is that her? Okay, yeah, I guess that's her. Because her hair changes 4 times in this movie. It's long, and then it's short, and then it's medium, and I just couldn't... There is something sinister about her, but every time I'm just like, what the fuck is this girl doing here? Because she keeps, like, popping out of bathrooms and closets and fucking all kinds of shit. Yeah. She's never just naturally in a scene in that movie.
I thought less that and more so every time that she popped up, I'm like, why the fuck are they doing this? Because, like, not for a hot second was I like, oh, it's her. Okay, yeah. Or, ooh, it could be her. I'm like, no.
What was the thing I said I liked about this movie?
I don't remember. Them running in and out of the house. No, or her seeing the house on set.
No, it's the set.
Yeah.
The other thing I like, Jamie Kennedy's back. And I like Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah. You know what we like about this movie? When it reminds us of other movies.
More specifically, the first one.
Yeah, exactly. Scream 3 is good when it's reminding you of better Scream movies.
Also, I hate... God, there's just so many little things where, like, it makes sense totally, but, like, it's just one of those things where it's, like... It's almost like weird little detours. They're so minuscule that are just like, oh, that's weird. Oh, that's weird. Like when she shows up and there's a metal detector waiting there for her to scan her body to make sure she didn't bring a gun. Like, I get it. Logically, he would do that. But also, it's just a weird... But I guess it works so that, like, oh, because then you're like, it works for the bait and switch later.
Where'd he get the metal detector, though?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, did he go out of his way to buy one to make sure that when he got her there, he could then have her use it? Like, because that's insane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I said, I get it because it is logical, but also it's one of those things where it's like, that's a lot of planning.
It's not 4D, it's 4D checkers for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't like that. And this is also the first time in the series where I'm not that scared of the ghost face. Like I said, in the first two, I feel like there's like a bit of a visceral nature to him. He's brutal. He is actually kind of scary. He stabs through a fucking stall door or whatever. Yeah. Those things are hard plastic.
2 had at least the scene where they're in the car. There's no part in this movie that made me tense or even a little bit scared or be like, ooh, I'd be scared to be in that situation.
No, not one.
To go back just a little bit, I disagree. I absolutely hate Jamie Kennedy in this movie.
Really?
I think Jamie Kennedy himself, fine. Jamie Kennedy being in this movie,
Uh-huh.
I hated it.
Yeah, I don't like that whole thing where it's like, if you're watching this, is too late.
Because in the first movie, he gets up and goes, "You guys don't know the rules?" And explains the rules, and it's just a fun joke, and you see it play out later.
I'm sorry.
And in what?
Go ahead, but I remembered something.
And in 2, he's just, yapping in the background all the time, and people are like, fucking...
No,
all
he
right.
gives the rules.
Yeah, and he's giving the rules,
Yeah.
but everyone's usually like, fucking shut up.
Yeah.
All right, Jamie Kennedy, shut up, we're being murdered, all right? And then in 3, everyone's like, oh, we gotta watch this videotape, and they watch it, and he's like, these are the rules.
That's
Everyone's
fair.
like- everyone's like, oh, this is important information we should be
Yeah.
remembering for later, and no one does.
Well, that's also like one of the things that in the first couple of movies, I think it works in terms of like just being a bit of like meta comedy.
Yeah, he's talking to us in the other movies.
But in this one, yeah, it ends up being like, I don't know if it's like the screenwriter like misunderstanding that and then just assuming that like he's actually like some sort of oracle type figure who.
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, it happens in the other movies. It's got to happen in Scream 3.
But in the second one, God, when we were talking about it, I meant to bring it up because he's sitting at the table with Dewey. They're having lunch, and he's like, all right, it's a sequel. The rules are different. And he lays out 3 rules. The 2 that he says in the film are... Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Bigger body count.
Absolutely. Could have been looking that up while I was talking. Sorry, go on.
Bigger body count. And that the death scenes are more elaborate. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't give a third one.
Really?
Even though he says there are 3 rules. For that, you gotta watch the trailer.
Does he give the third rule in the trailer?
In the trailer, yes.
Wow.
Don't remember what the third one is, so go ahead and find that trailer.
I won't.
Anyways, back to the third one.
We watched it. I can't. I'm trying to think of the end, and I know it happens in that basement. It happens with. I can't even remember his name. He's one of the boyfriends in Scrubs. The killer ends up being. And it was the same thing with Timothy Olyphant too. I remembered it was him in this movie because I remembered he was the guy from Scrubs. Mm-hmm. That's all I remembered. But it's the same thing with Timothy Olyphant too, where he shows up at the beginning and then
he's not. Yeah.
Gone until the last 10 minutes of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I like the idea of the reporter from the second one being like, it's always blame the parents as a motive way more than I like this weird thing about him being like the bastard son of, Sydney's mom.
Yeah. And
Very strange.
Was his plan to kill people on the movie set until Sydney eventually showed up?
Yeah.
Because how could he account for that?
What's the first murder? Oh, that's right. He comes after Cotton.
Yeah.
And then after that, he starts leaving pictures of Sydney's mom.
At the crime scene. Oh, that's right. He's looking for her.
Yeah, he's trying to find her.
Yeah.
But she's in witness protection.
Yeah, and that's right. He calls her and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, also, totally forgot about her having all those visions of her dead mom.
Yeah, that's a really weird, 4, 5, 6 Halloween sequel, a way that they, add in, some weird supernatural element that just...
It's just her having...
Doesn't fit with the rest?
Yeah, it's just her having PTSD, which I feel like could have been done better for sure. Other we made the joke at the end where, they see her walking with a dog and they're like, yeah, she's okay. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
You're like, no, she will not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's weird. I think it's a very weird addition to the movie.
Also, a gust of wind blows a door open, I think 5 or 6 times in this movie.
Yeah, are the Hollywood Hills that windy?
I don't know. I don't think anywhere's that windy, bud.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw a gust of wind bust open a shut
More often than
door?
not, the wind usually closes doors, usually slams doors
Yeah.
in my lifetime.
Yeah.
That's what I've experienced. Usually slams open doors.
They're not good at turning handles.
I'm going to give this movie a big fat F. Failed. It failed miserably, in my opinion.
I'm going to give it a D
Yeah.
because I had fun watching it.
Yeah.
I'd say an F for a movie is a movie that I find boring.
Really?
I didn't think that this movie was good,
Yeah.
but I had fun. We had some good yucks watching it. I laughed when they were running in and out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I said, I wasn't bored watching it.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to consider, Fs are when I think that there's something the movie tried to do, or at least in the case of a sequel, something that the series has been established as accomplishing that it just fails to just misses the mark. It did, whatever it was trying for, it didn't end up doing, right? And what it's trying to do is the same thing, right? It lays out the 3 rules about how, like, oh, something, there's a twist, there's something you didn't, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I just don't think it's ever successfully, like, aware of itself enough to then actually, like, in the first one we were talking a lot about how, like, oh, it's like Wes Craven's movie where he's just like such a horror master that at this point he can kind of like riff on it, make almost table talk. Well, also Kevin Williamson is a big part of that. A lot of that was written by him, and now Kevin Williamson is gone, and there's some guy who can clearly write a horror movie, but he definitely can't write a good one. And if you can't write a good one, then you can't write a good one that also does table talk, that also is meta, right? And so I think it just ends up letting down the first 2, even though the second one wasn't even that good. I think we probably gave it like a C or something. Yeah. So anyways, that's my criteria for an F, is like if it just completely fails what I expected from it.
Yeah, no, I think that works. I think that's a perfect criteria for an F. That's probably what I would give a movie an F for. But like
we had fun.
Yeah, I said, I had fun. I think it is just.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I'd watch it again.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I am probably gonna watch Scream 3 again before I die. Hopefully. Hopefully I don't die tomorrow.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, God, please let me see the Scream 3 one more time.
Within a reasonable amount of time. I don't want to see it again too soon.
It reminds me of one of my favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone. It's called One for the Angels. Death comes for a guy, right? He has a job where he sells shit on the street corner or whatever. He's very close with the neighborhood kids. Very briefly, he says, like, hey, it's your time. He's like, but I've got unfinished business. And then Death's like, well, actually, there's infrastructure for that. So, like, what is the thing? And he's like, I've never been skydiving. And he's like, that's not it. You could come with me. And he's like, well, there is one thing.
I have to avenge the rape and murder of my girlfriend and play a guitar solo on the roof.
Yeah. Well, then he goes on this thing about how he's like, I always wanted to make a real good sale or whatever. One for the angels, one that would open up, yada, 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 or whatever. And spoilers, at the end of the movie, he does. Because basically what happens is once he makes that deal with Death that he can have a little more time to try to finish up his business, he ends up killing one of the neighborhood kids that he likes or whatever, and she's going to die tonight at midnight kind of a thing. And so then he ends up setting up outside of her house and like to make a sale or whatever, and Death's like, hey, this is kind of late for a sale. And he's like, hey, you never know when a sale is gonna come across. And the whole thing is that Death is very punctual, and he makes Death late for the appointment. And so at the end, Death's kind of like, that was a really good sale. And he's like, yeah, it was, wasn't it? And he's like, one for the angels. And he's like, yeah, I guess it was. And they go off together. But anyways, in that scenario, you would have to say, obviously, my unfinished business is that I gotta see Scream 3 one more time. Yeah. That was a lot of work for not that funny of a. I guess it would have been funnier, like, if I could have just made the reference.
If I was dying,
it was a deep cut though,
and Death came to me. Yeah. And I was like, I gotta see. I gotta see Scream 3 before I died. And he was like, okay, you can have.
You would grant that one for sure.
What?
I'm saying he'd grant that one.
Yeah, no, and he was like, all right, fine, you can watch Scream 3. You can sit in this living room and live for 2 more hours or watch Scream 3. I'd probably be like, nah, that's fine. You can I'll just go.
Right now, in this moment specifically, doesn't have to be that deep. You decide. If you were given that deal by Death, what would be your case for I've got unfinished business?
Oof. I've never been in love. No, I'm kidding.
That'd be a very sweet one. That would probably even get you.
I don't know.
That'd probably even get it for you.
I don't think I have one.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'd like to do a kickflip before I die.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'd like to see a different country before I die. That'd probably be it. I've never left the country. But that's not as philosophical and nice as a one for the angels.
I think being in love was a decent one.
Okay. Well, I think I have, but...
Yeah. What about reciprocated love with longevity?
I feel like that'd be a loophole.
Yeah, fair.
Listen,
I want to be in love for 40 years.
I'd like to be married for a while and have at least 1 or 2 kids.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is I don't think I have one like the one for the angels thing that would work, because anything that I'm in the process of or that I'd like out of my life is like a thing where it's like, hey, buddy, we're talking 20, 30 years for me to figure out, like,
Yeah.
I want to have, like, a kid or something, or I'd like to get married, or I'd like to write a novel one day or something. Those are all things where it's like, yeah, okay, how long is that going to take you, buddy? So anyways, we've graded the film. At this point, we're not talking about movies anymore, so I think that means, well, here's a fun thing.
So on to the meat and potatoes of this episode. Enough with that drivel that we were just talking about. Chris,
Yes.
what did you think about Scream 4? Finally, after all these years, we've seen Scream 4.
I've been trying for the last 2 days to figure out how exactly I'm going to get my point across. I gave a dry run to Delaney earlier. I will agree with you that this is by far the strongest Scream sequel.
Oh, you spoiler alert, you ruined my opinion. Whatever, go on.
Fuck, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Okay. Aspects of it. Because I think there are a lot of moments in this that would work really well as a slasher movie in general.
Okay.
My problem with the Scream sequels is this. You're going to crucify me because I know I'm not going to be able to fucking explain it perfectly, but all three of them, lumping them all together. The first one stands alone. Perfect. Beautiful, right? It has this thing about the way that it does meta commentary where I feel like it's not doing that sort of like scary movie thing where you're looking at it and you're going like, oh yeah, and then let me guess, the cop's gonna walk in and whatever, and I'm gonna have big tits. I know there's an F.
Sorry, that was...
Anyways, I thought that was the sliding glass door. There's a tone to which I feel like it's criticizing from almost a standpoint of kind of like love for the thing, and also that young kind of like I can do better than the generation before me. Look at all these ideas that have gotten stale, and I'm coming in here and I want to be taken seriously, and this is going to be edgy and this is going to be biting. Example, when at the end they reveal why they're doing all of this, the whole time, even though they're saying silly shit that they heard from other characters earlier, like, oh, it's the millennium, it's scarier if we don't have a motive, the whole time they feel dangerous and it's scary, and you're like, wow, like, fuck, this is like, what are they going to do next, right? My problem with the second, third, and fourth one is that it's a much more cynical, curmudgeon-y kind of like, yeah, and let me guess, I'm going to stick my head out the window and an axe is going to come down on my head, and then it does, and everybody's like, ah, whatever. Example, more on the nose example, when Sidney Prescott, spoilers, when her niece is revealed to be the killer, her motive scene, in my opinion, is very different. Because the way she's saying it is as if you as the audience is supposed to side with the writer in acknowledging that, like, what she's saying is a dumb, privileged millennial thing to say.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be scary like it was in Scream, where you're like, oh, fuck, it is a new generation. These are people who don't have to be like, for 30 years they walked on my lawn and now I'm going to get back at them. No, they've just seen too many movies and they're a little fucked up and they're killing people, right?
Yeah.
And it's scary. Whereas like all the other Scream movies, it's that kind of a thing where like, I don't know what the words I'm looking for are, but it just has this thing where like, it's less like hungry and genuine and like watch how good I can do, and a lot more just like it's almost like the way that the scary movies progressed, where like it just kind of like a lost sight of like, I don't know, actually wanting to also contribute to the genre, and instead just trying to go for like that meta thing without actually having like the right to. I guess that's a good way to put it. Like, I feel like Scream has the right to be meta, and none of the sequels earn the right to be meta either. Sorry I went on for so long, and I really don't know if I got my point across, but that's
I know exactly
my biggest problem with the sequels.
I have so many things to jump off from what you just said.
Try not to forget.
I won't. I will.
Take your time.
I mean,
also.
I will.
We have time to kill.
In the first movie,
Yeah.
Billy Loomis, like you said, watched one too many movies.
Yeah.
Now he's like this. But aside from that, he is an insane person.
Yeah.
And you get that through the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the way he speaks
Yeah,
to Sidney.
well, you pointed out it's a great thing, and I think but even just when he's like, oh, geez, can you get over your mom already?
Exactly. Everything he does, he is such a textbook narcissist.
Yeah.
And so the whole him finding out his mom was cheating or his dad was cheating with her mom and being like that, setting him over the edge.
And now he's gonna make it right because he's been wronged.
Yes, but also on top of that, he's seen all these movies, so blah blah this and that, and he peer pressures his dumb best friend into helping him.
Yeah,
that all works perfectly.
Yeah. And like I say, I think a decent contribution to the genre, right? That's where you kind of earn your right. You earn your right.
And what?
She's agreeing with you. Keep going.
Appreciate it, Coop. Emma Roberts, whatever her name is in Scream 4, has 9 fucking motives. Before she kills her boyfriend, she's like, oh, well, this is what happens when you cheat on a girl who blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And she shoots her.
Yeah.
Shoots him. And then she's like, oh, all my life I hear Sydney this, Sydney that, and I always living in your shadow. I don't even know you, so now it's going to be my turn.
And then she goes into the 15 minutes of fame.
And the 15 minutes of fame, and then, it's going to be spread all over online. But at no point did I ever think that this girl was an insane person.
Yeah.
There are no signs in this
acts
movie.
normal the whole time.
She's very normal the entire time, where when you watch...
Which... To agree with you and also put words in your mouth for a minute, because I think it's what you're saying, that's not a bait and switch.
Yeah.
If you just characterize a character one way the whole time and then change the way they act, it's not a bait and switch.
Yeah. My favorite thing about Scream is 20 minutes in, she goes, oh, fuck, I think it's my boyfriend. And then for the whole movie, you're like, it looks like it might be the boyfriend.
Yeah.
And then he gets stabbed by Ghostface, and you're like, oh, fuck, I guess I was wrong. It's not the boyfriend. And at the end, it's like, oh, it's the boyfriend and his boyfriend. And it's great. But in this, she's just the girl, and she's the surrogate for Sydney in this reboot.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, nope, it turned out to be me and the Jamie Kennedy substitute in this movie. Which I didn't hate when I first started, when we watched it. I hate it more than now I've had time to think about it. I did really like watching Scream 4, that I was like...
Yeah, though, this is easily the easiest to watch sequel, I think, But that's, again, real quick, I'll agree with you. Like I said, I think you were right. Like, I think I said it in the kitchen after we finished. But my biggest thing is that all of the sequels are so far behind the first one.
Yeah.
That it's really not a compliment to say Scream 4 is the best one.
Oh, no, for sure. And that brings me back to another thing I was going to say about what you were saying about all of them being like, oh, and then an axe is going to hit me in the head. The thing that works so well about Scream 1 is Kevin Williamson wrote it, and it's, an homage to all these... to all these old slasher movies.
I was trying to scare her so she stops coming over to me and yelling.
Yeah. Just an insane way to do it. It's an homage.
Sorry, you're going to cut a lot of this out. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. It's an homage to all these old slasher movies written by this guy, and then you get Wes Craven to direct it.
Yeah.
And all these tricks and all these things that you've seen in these other movies. I said this when we were talking about Scream 1 originally. Wes Craven can do it because he's like, I was there, I was in the room when we came up with this shit.
I wrote the book on this.
I wrote the book on this. I know how all of this works.
Yeah.
So he can do it and subvert it a little bit. Like the great scenes where they're walking around with the music from Halloween because it's playing on
I was
TV,
just going to bring that up because
and he looks in the closet and all that shit.
Yeah, that's another example really quick of, again, contributing something, earning something. Where is a scene that clever in any of the sequels?
Like, in Scream 3, you get the DVD or the video of Jamie Kennedy being like, these are the rules of the third movie. And it's like, are they?
Yeah.
I can't... Okay, maybe. And then, like, he ends that message by going, and I guess I'll see some of you soon. He doesn't. Nobody in that movie dies. And yeah, the 2 and 3 are very much so being like, well, this is how sequels work, and,
it's like,
this is how third movies work, and it's like...
Because that shit breaks all the time. Like, what about Season of the Witch, Halloween 3?
Yeah, exactly.
Or, like, what about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? That's a very strange movie that does not follow any of the rules of the sequel. Well, I guess it does, like, the kills are more grotesque.
But it doesn't follow all the rules. All I'm saying is, yes, you get into muddy waters once you get into, like, what are the rules of a sequel?
Yeah, and it's like, in the third one, you'll reveal something from your past, from
But it's
the
not
first
always the
movie.
third one sometimes. It's the fourth one. It's the fifth one. It's the sixth one.
Or sometimes it just doesn't fucking happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about this one.
Yeah. The rules of the reboot are a little more clear.
Yes, and they're better.
Yeah.
And there are definitely points in this where I'm like, oh, fuck. They're just redoing this from this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes me a minute to realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like Scream 1, when he's walking through the house. I'm like, oh, fuck. They're playing the music from Halloween that's on the TV. This is what they're doing. That's very cool. Like, there's a bunch of examples, but my biggest one, we talked about it the other night, is when they're at the Stab-a-thon.
Yeah.
They started out, they introduced this scene where they're like, well, if this person's doing the reboot, they're going to attack at a big party. When's a big party coming up? And they're like, well, we're having the Stab-a-thon. We're not going to tell you where it is.
But also he's live streaming his entire life.
Oh my god, this kid has a camera on the entire time. Yeah, we both made that joke at the same time.
Where it's like, okay, you guys go home, boot up your computer, pay attention to the route he takes.
Find out where he's going, or just look a little bit further in the archive of the live stream and watch him checking his emails so he finds out. Anyway, they get to the Stab-a-thon. It's a bunch of people watching all the Stab movies together. Stab 1 starts playing, the Robert Rodriguez directed thing from Scream 2.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the barn's watching it. They're reciting lines from it. And
I will say,
screaming
pause for a second. Stab. I was looking at that inside the movie, and it's like, fuck, I want to watch that movie. Or
I
this.
would so watch Stab. And like they're screaming at the screen like it's a bunch of people watching The Room.
I'm so sorry to interrupt again, but that just made me think. Like, I was like, how would you recreate an experience like that? I think it'd be so cool. I know that it exists in the sense of the Spanish Dracula thing, but like it'd be so cool if, like, I don't know, maybe A24 would be risky enough to do this, but take the same script and like give it to two separate directors and crews that shoot it at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And then you could just watch and see what each of these teams did with the same thing at the exact same time, so there's no reference to each other, yada yada yada.
That'd be very cool.
Yeah.
It's almost like Dracula and Spanish Dracula.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Like, that's the only example I know that exists. But again, the purpose would only be, like, because, like, imagine if at the same time Wes Craven's directing Scream, Robert Rodriguez actually did.
Yeah.
You know? And then you have these two.
I'm so excited to watch another vampire movie because I want to talk about Dracula so bad, Chris.
Okay. We're going to watch one in a little bit. But anyways, you're talking about Stab-a-thon and the references you love. And
everybody's watching Stab.
Yeah.
And they're screaming at the theater like it's screaming at the screen like it's either, a bunch of people watching The Room or Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Or watching Stab 3 and Scream 2.
In Scream 2, they're watching Stab 1.
Oh.
Get it together, Chris.
Oh, it's the third one where they jump to the third one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is very reminiscent of the scene from the beginning of Scream 2.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of people are watching Scream or watching Stab and like throwing shit at the screen and yelling and stuff like that. And then Gail, Courtney Cox, comes in because she's like, oh fuck, some shit's gonna go down here, and she starts putting cameras all over the place, like she did in Scream 1. And it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then all of her cameras start going out, and it's like, oh, that's spooky because she's watching from the screen inside of her car on her laptop, and all the cameras start going out. And she's like, oh, I gotta go in there and figure this out. And she picks up a camera, and she's walking around with it because she sees something I don't remember. Oh, she sees the other webcam that the killer has set up. And Dewey comes along to come help her, and he looks in her car window while she's inside the barn and sees her holding that camera and the killer coming. And it's like, oh, fuck. That exact same thing happened in Scream 1.
Well, can we pause for a second? The whole idea of them recording the kills kind of went nowhere also.
Yes, absolutely.
It just shows up like in like 3% of the film, but then is never like connected as a dot as to like why they're doing it, what they're going to do with it.
They're like, oh, we're recording it because everybody records shit nowadays, and also it helps set up an alibi.
Okay.
I think that's all it was.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's just like the scene in Scream 1 where she hides the camera inside the party, and What's-His-Face is watching it from the van. He's like, oh, there's a 30-second delay.
So good.
Which is so much better.
So much better.
Fuck, there's another reference in the Stab-a-thon thing that I can't remember. And there's other references in the movie that I just can't remember.
Yeah.
So, say something.
No. I will say the cop car, Scream 2 cop car scene, for me, is the one where they're looking at their neighbor's room as she gets murdered by Ghostface.
Yeah.
That, in my opinion, is almost as good as the Wes Craven directed scene where she has to crawl over an unconscious Ghostface. That's so tense. But yeah, I love when like she's like, "You're not in that fucking closet. You're not in that fucking closet." And he's like, "I never said I was in your closet."
Yeah.
That's the only time, in my opinion, other than when Ghostface is interacting with Sydney specifically, that I feel like Ghostface is actually like being what I want him to be, which is that he like talks to them and taunts them and stuff like that. But like the first like hour of the movie, everybody keeps doing this thing where they're like pretending to be Ghostface, and everybody keeps it. If I swear to God, I was gonna stop watching if I heard "What's your favorite scary movie?" one more time. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, I love that scene where he's in the neighbor's closet.
Yeah,
because
that's great.
It reminds me of just what I love about Scream 1, where it's like as soon as that phone call starts, I'm like, oh fuck, he's in the neighbor's room. And the entire time I'm like, oh fuck, he's in the neighbor's room. Oh fuck, he's in the neighbor's room.
I could be misremembering, but I am pretty sure in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, your main girl, I'm trying to remember her name, and I can't.
Johnny Depp.
But she's dating Johnny Depp, I think, and he like lives across the way, and I think he's supposed to be staying up to help her stay awake, but she falls asleep a little bit and then like wakes up and she's like, fuck, he didn't call me, so she tries calling him and he's not answering, and she's like, oh my god, now he's gonna get murdered. And I think they live across the way, but she doesn't necessarily like see it away, but it just reminded me of that, I guess. Anyways,
but what I like so much about it is it's just like Scream 1. Even if I see something coming from a mile away, I'm like, this is really good. I'm intrigued, even though I know exactly what's gonna happen in a minute.
I also didn't like necessarily. Here's something I didn't like. Again, like it's just one of those things where I don't care, and in fact, I love how many Halloween sequels there are. Yeah. I love how many Nightmare on Elm Street sequels there are. I love how many Friday the 13th sequels there are. They're not necessarily good, but each one of them has their own like sort of atmosphere and aesthetic.
Okay.
And they also kind of like carry on a lot of the feel and the vibe of each of their respective franchises. Sure, at a certain point they lose the plot or they lose the magic, whatever. And like I said, they're not necessarily good movies. I think one of the things that really bums me out is I'm like, god damn, 4 times with this one person. Yeah. Only really in Halloween does that happen, where Jamie Lee Curtis is still alive to this day in that universe. But in most, there's the final girl, but she doesn't really get fucked with ever again. Except Friday the 13th part, like 2 starts with the girl from 1 getting murdered, and then there's a new girl, which is more of a reference to Psycho or whatever.
Yeah.
But, there's that scene, for example, where, like, Gail yells to Dewey as he's giving a press conference. She's like, you going to comment on the fact that this mirrors the same thing that happened, like, 20 years ago? And I was just like, yeah. For the 4th time, it's mirroring that. Like, it's a pretty big lead that it's a mirror. Like, everybody's already aware of that. Like,
yeah. I was thinking about it during this movie. It's like, this has happened 3 times to Sidney Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she's writing a book and going, these are the towns I'm going to be in, and then also going back to her hometown, incredibly irresponsible.
On the 20th anniversary?
Incredibly irresponsible. Yeah. If you are Sidney Prescott, you change your name to Deborah Johnson.
Well, yeah, that's
I'm such a bad improver.
Exactly
I couldn't think of a last name when I said my own last name.
But that's another thing you bring up that I totally forgotten about. In the 2nd and 3rd ones, she's living in like witness protection or whatever. She has an alternate name.
Does she?
Yes, 100%.
This is news to me.
No, it is not. That's why she's living in the fucking like California hillsides and nobody can find her because she's not in the fucking phone book as Sidney Prescott. She's going by another name.
Okay, well, who are you to tell me what's news to me?
You don't remember that part of the movie?
I remember her just like trying to get away from everything and being in the 90s, so it's a little bit easier, but I don't remember her going by another name or anything like that, or really being in witness protection. Also, I think a big hang up in this movie is when she's like, all right, as soon as it starts happening, she's like, all right, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And the cops are like, no, you have to stay. I'm like, no, I think you'd get her the fuck out of here. While you're looking up whatever you're looking up. A big point of this movie I did like, and it's something I do like about modern horror movies, is the two cops that are guarding the house the entire time. They're played by a man I recognize and a man I don't. Can't think of his name. But yeah, they're just two cops sitting outside, and they're just shooting the shit every now and then, and they're like kind of a comic relief. But it's a trope in modern horror movies that I really like. I can think about it in like the new Halloween, where they're just two what would usually be nameless characters that are going to die. They're here just to die in this movie. But you give them these fun little scenes, and you're like, you know what? I like these guys. And then they die, and you're like, oh no! But in like any other movie, it would just be two cops sitting outside, and then they get stabbed, and then they're dead.
Yeah, they're probably my favorite part of this movie. That's probably a bit hyperbolic, but I did enjoy the cops quite a bit.
Yeah.
Very funny, especially when the one cop is like, all right, I'll be right back. Oh shit, I'm not supposed to say that, right? That joke works really well.
Oh yeah.
But then the movie does the thing that my biggest complaint about it, immediately after, Sydney and her aunt are in the kitchen, and her aunt's like, okay, I'll be right back. And then Sydney looks at her like, uh-oh. And the movie made the same reference twice inside of like 3 minutes. And it just does that so often. Like, how many fucking times did I have to hear, what's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah.
Make the reference once and fucking stop. Fucking stop.
Maybe, for the wrong reasons, my favorite part of this movie is there's a part earlier where Alison Brie gets stabbed in the stomach, immediately dies.
Yeah.
These two cops get jumped by Ghostface.
Mm-hmm.
One of them gets stabbed a bunch, dies. The other one gets stabbed in the forehead.
Brain, basically. Gets
right
brain.
between the center, right in the center of the brain.
Third eye.
Gets scanned darkly, his brain split down right in the middle.
Yeah. Left and right.
Left and right.
Independent.
And then he goes, ugh.
For a minute and 7 seconds.
Opens the car door, goes, what? Oh no. Starts swinging.
Yeah.
Falls to his knees, goes, fuck Bruce Willis, because of a conversation they had earlier,
Yeah.
and then dies.
Yeah. Very dramatic.
So fucking good.
Yeah. Very good.
That brings me to my second favorite part of this movie. At the beginning, they do the classic fake out kind of a fake out, like a Scream 1, which I know by the time me and you both had seen this movie, we knew about already. I've seen the first Scream, we knew about, I'm pretty sure. Is that Drew Barrymore dies immediately.
Yeah.
She's the biggest star in this movie, dies immediately. This movie starts with two young actresses. I can't remember the girl's name, but one of them is a pretty big actress currently. She's in a lot of stuff. And her and her friend are like, ooh, this guy's stalking me on Facebook. And then Ghostface shows up and kills that girl. And I'm like, okay, so the famous girl who's on the poster of this movie is going to make it through this. And then she dies. So I'm like, oh, fuck, that got me.
That one's already like 3 gotchas deep, isn't it?
Maybe.
Because the first one's just a couple of...
No. This is the first one.
This is the first one?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, they got me. She was on the poster. I thought it was going to be her. And then it goes, stab 6.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And then it cuts to Rogue and Dax Shepard's wife.
You mean Sookie Stackhouse?
Sure. Talking about...
Sookie.
I don't know. I don't get the reference.
Sookie Stackhouse. True Blood. I loved True Blood.
Oh, never saw it. It's them doing more meta commentary about meta commentary. And then Dax Shepard's wife stabs Sookie Steakhouse, or whatever you called her. And it goes, stab 7. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. And we were both like, this movie is insane.
Yeah.
And
I do like the idea of it inceptioning me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say that immediately when the first one started, like the way that they were talking was very textbook, like, oh god, and you know that just to get like million word a minute, like just like deconstructing like tropes, and I was like, is this what this movie's gonna be?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, is this what this movie's gonna be? And then it was like stab 6, and I was like, fuck.
And
then
like,
there's 2 more girls doing the same shit, and I was like, oh my god, it is gonna be this. And it's like stab 7, and it's like,
oh, they got me.
Yeah. And then the last one I think is the most palatable, especially because like the one girl is like, she's like, you're the dumb big-tooted blonde, and she's like, actually, I've got a 4.0 GPA, or whatever GPA.
And for that whole scene, I'm like, all right, they're gonna get a stab 8. When is stab 8? And then an hour and 20 minutes pass, and like cop gets stabbed in the brain. I'm like, oh, please say stab 8 right here.
And then there's the weird like semi-reference to the garage death from the first one, where she gets smashed by the
Yeah, it just kind of
Rush.
closes on her.
Yeah.
Layout of that house is weird. We were talking about this, or I was talking about this. She goes upstairs, closes the door. She's in an attic, runs down the stairs of the attic, like an unfinished part of the house, into the garage. Very strange to me.
I will say this is probably the most insufferable that Gail Weathers has been, in my opinion.
Oh, she's the worst in this.
Yeah, I hate when she's like talking to Dewey and she's like, "You gotta let me in on this," and he's like, "It's police business," and she's like, "Yeah, but I solved 3 of these," and then she's like, "Whatever, I'm going rogue," and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah. She's like, I helped solve 3 of these. And it's like, did you?
Yeah, did you?
You were there for sure.
Yeah,
you
for
absolutely
sure
almost died 3 times.
Yeah.
But every single time the killer just went, "It was me, and this is what I'm doing."
Yeah, don't treat it like you guys were Scooby in the gang.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys were 100% at the mercy of whatever psychopath showed up to town that year.
Yeah, and it feels like every time she shows up in this movie, she's just doing her thing, and then someone is basically saying, "Hey, I know it's kind of your thing that you're the bitch, but not right now, please."
Yeah. I will say also, okay, so the second Scream is the one that, don't get me wrong, they fumbled the fuck out of it. They mishandled this, specifically the motive. But I do wish they would have done a better job. Like, that's a great, in my opinion, like it's a great idea for them to be like, "Oh, it's always the mother. It's always the mother. It's always like how the kid was raised, yada, yada, yada."
Disagree. Go on, sorry.
And then same thing with like this motive, which is like the thing where it's like everybody gets their 15 minutes and stuff like that. I feel like, yes, there's decent criticism to have there. But again, the way they handled it, just fucking fumbled it.
I'm going to blame it on that son of a bitch, Harvey Weinstein. So I was reading some facts while we were watching this.
Yeah.
Apparently the script was written by Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. And they had some bitch whose name I can't even remember. He wrote Scream 3.
Yeah.
And then Kevin Williamson wrote Scream...
Oh, his name's like Aaron Kruger or something?
Something like that. Kevin Williamson wrote Scream 4, and that fat piece of shit Harvey Weinstein and his brother Bob, who I know nothing about, were like, no, we're going to have Scream 3 guy come punch this up a little bit. So
yeah, because Scream 3 went so well, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
That really made him a lot of money to do that one.
So I'm going to blame every bad thing in this movie on that guy and Harvey Weinstein.
Sure.
Unforgivable.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, so that's fair to say. They're just fucking up Kevin Williamson's artistic vision. I just wanted to make the point that, like, I feel like in all 3 of these, sequels, there's like a good idea, some decent scary movies, but in general just fumble, just these mishandlings. It almost feels like, I'm sure it wasn't, but it almost feels like rushed or something, or like if someone was like, "Hey, we'll give you a lot of money to do Scream 2," and they're like, "Oh, okay, tight, I got a couple ideas," and then like a month before they were supposed to be shooting, they were like, "Oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus. God damn it. Christ. I got caught up doing Star Wars fan fiction. Oh, God. Too long. All right. Okay. They're in college this time. They're in Hollywood this time. Okay. This time, it's 2021. It's the niece. And, she 15 minutes of fame. Only way to get famous. Fucked up stuff. Some guy who kind of looks like, Jamie Kennedy. No. 2 characters this time. 2 characters instead of just Jamie Kennedy. And they run a film club."
Yeah. I'll agree with you. Scream 2 and 3 absolutely feel rushed.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to get a sequel out. This one feels the most thought out of all the sequels.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to say...
Still fumbled a bit.
It's fumbled. I'm going to...
Still fumbled.
Guess because of what's-his-face's rewrites.
Yeah.
But,
I also love, I think you missed it, but there's a little insert where it's like late at night and Dewey's like rushing to a crime scene, and they got this fucking shot where he's just like head tilted forward, grabbing the wheel like this, and it just happens for like 2 seconds. It's the cheesiest shit I've seen in the whole movie.
Something I really liked about this movie is Dewey is the sheriff, and he feels like a sheriff of a police station this entire movie. He's not Dewey.
Yeah.
He's not Deputy Dewey this entire movie. And then right at the end, he gets his ass kicked by a teenage girl beating him over the head with a poop bucket.
I will say a scene that was really fucking making me go, "Ugh," is when she keeps fucking punching Sydney in her fucking recently stitched stomach. I was like, oh, God. Oh, that's actually pretty gnarly. Oh.
I was really hoping Sydney was dead. Like, of
Yeah.
course they're not going to do it. She's got to come back for 5. But I was like, man, I hope something you said. I really hoped that this movie ended or was coming to a close and she's getting away with it. Oh, right until the end where someone figures it out.
Yeah.
But no, it's almost immediate. They're in the hospital and Gail's like, how'd she know I got stabbed here?
Yeah. And on top of that, also, like, oh, wait, Sydney's actually in the ICU. She might pull through, you know. Yes, I agree with you. I think, honestly, like, all of them should have died if they do another sequel. Like, I don't necessarily think they should. But
Oh, they're doing another one.
already?
Scream 5's coming out, yeah. What do you mean already? Chris, Scream 4 came out a decade ago.
No kidding?
Came out in 2011, yeah.
Wow.
Scream
I just
4
told
is
Delaney
10
it came out
years
in like
old.
2017.
No, it came out 10 years ago.
Where's my... Here's the pulse. Here's your finger. Far from the pulse. Shoves directly up your ass or whatever. A little Mallrats reference. Yada, 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 yow. That's insane, what you've just told me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of wish a lot of them would have died. And honestly, probably would have been a better ending, even if she got away with it.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine walking away with that and just being like, damn, wow. My take at the time was kind of like, it's 2011. At the time, I thought it was like 2017. But it's 2011. Forensic would 100% show up and be like, yeah, it looks like she pressed herself against this wall hard enough that it would look like she got stabbed. And also she shot this guy in the dick. And also, yeah, she stabbed this one. So
she's
everything she's telling you is a big fat lie.
Yeah, or even to a lesser extent, it'd be like, okay, well, she says this guy died, then she died, then he died. But we can for sure tell that he died at this time.
Yeah.
And then he died, and then she died.
And then she died last. Oh, actually, she's in ICU. She's not even dead yet, you know. So, yeah, those are my criticisms for the end. I know you had a very hard time with the end. You want to talk about your hate for the last 10 minutes? Is there anything you haven't said yet, I guess? Because we got to the point where you're like, oh, fuck, I remember
Yes.
I watched these at my friend's house, these last 10 minutes.
Yeah. I caught when this movie, right when it came out on DVD or whatever, I was at someone else's house and they were watching the last 10 minutes of it. And I probably hadn't even seen Scream 1 at this point. No, I think I had. I'd seen 1, 2, and 3. And had no interest in 4. But I remember very much so Gail being in the end of it and it happening in a hospital.
Yeah.
So when it was happening at the end of the house, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering it. But, yeah, then they get to the hospital. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to remember this. And then Sydney turns on the defibrillator. And I just remembered watching these last 10 minutes and Sydney turning on the defibrillator. And Gail being like, I have just one word to say to you before I die. And I'm going like, oh, if she says clear, I'm going to lose my mind. And then she goes, clear. And then she defibrillates her brain. I'm like, oh, fuck me, no.
And you know what I'm tired of?
What are you tired of?
Honestly, I think it's weak even in the first movie, but they do it in every one. Where Jamie Kennedy says, the killer always comes back for one last square, and then the killer goes, ugh, and he shoots her. And then in the second one, Sydney does the same thing. And in the third one, Sydney does... And then in this one, yeah, same thing. She gets back up, and Sydney just instinctively, because it's happened to her 3 times, turns around and shoots her. Right as she's about to stab her with some glass or whatever.
Garbage.
And again, it's one of those things where I'm like, why is this a staple of this movie series?
Do you want to hear the synopsis of Scream 5?
Give it to me. Yeah.
Just a preamble. Starring David Arquette, Neve Campbell, and Courtney Cox. A woman returns... I'm going to read this as written. A woman returns hometown to try and find out who has been committing a series of violent crimes.
So anyways, this movie's easily like a D for me. Probably
You'd
D.
give it a D?
I'd probably give it a D.
I'd give this a B.
B?
Yeah, for
Okay.
what it is, I'm going to give it a solid B.
Yes. This is, like you said, I agree with you. It's the strongest sequel.
Yeah.
But also just... I don't feel good about any of them. Like, other than for kind of a goof with you watching them, like, when am I ever really gonna? Like, if someone was like I came over to someone and they're like, oh, we're watching Scream 2. Like, yeah, I would, but like... I don't know. I guess kind of. I don't know.
I would say if I had to rewatch a Scream sequel, it would be 4.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess they all have like a little bit of a rewatchability thing where it's like,
Oh, no,
do you want to watch the one where they're in college?
I'd happily watch any of these again.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll watch Scream 1 any day of the week.
Yeah.
It might take me a little bit of convincing to watch the other ones. But
It'd be more for a goof.
Yeah, but if someone just has one on, I'd be like, you know what? I could find some fun in Scream 2. Scream 3 is all camp. We talked about this recently. The more I think about Scream 3, the more I like it.
Yeah.
Because it's just camp.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But they're just fun movies to make fun of, with the exception of 1. And 4 has some decent ideas that I'm like, you know what? I can kind of get behind this.
Yeah.
Until, her monologue at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that breaks it down the most. Scream 5 coming in January 2022. So stay tuned for our episode on that.
Well, actually, I want to sneak one more thing in there. I also feel like this is the movie of the series that, in my opinion, has like probably the weakest aesthetic charm.
I get that. I do. I brought it up while we were watching it. I do really appreciate when there's all the outside shots of like the town or the high school.
And I agree. It's very sunny, bright.
They got that like 90s glow to it.
Yeah, glow. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know.
I'd say the least inspired visually has to be 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so 3. Yes, 3 is the one where it's like Sydney's half brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. You're right in the sense that I would easily rewatch all of them, and they're fun for a goof, and they're fine to just kind of have on. But yeah, again, it's just I don't know. They're all kind of fumbles to a degree.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. If I had to put them in an order.
Oh, okay.
Scream 1.
Okay.
Scream 3.
Okay.
Scream. No, I lied. Sorry, take that back. I fumbled immediately.
Yeah.
Scream 1, Scream 4,
Uh-huh.
Scream 3, Scream 2.
Yeah.
Because my reasoning, Scream 1, untouchable. Scream 3 knows exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, I did it again.
Scream 4 knows exactly what it is.
Scream 4 is good, has fun ideas. Scream 3 knows exactly what it is. Scream 2 thinks it's doing something when it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm probably going to say Scream 1, because I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Untouchable. Crucify me. I love that cop car scene. Probably going to put Scream 2 number 2.
That's fine. That's
and then
totally
Scream 4, and then Scream 3 for
Okay.
me. I don't know. Yeah, it's just so difficult, because, like, I'm not, like, angry at any of these movies, but...
You know what? I changed my mind. Scream 4, number 1. I'm just kidding. I fumbled it again is what happened. Scream 1, Scream 4, Scream 2, Scream 3.
Yeah.
Because the more I think about Scream 3 right now, there's all that Carrie Fisher stuff.
Yeah.
Hate it. Just hate it.
Yeah.
But I do like her going back to the set. That's her house, and she opens the door with the closet.
That's a great moment. I love
all that
that
stuff's
moment.
great.
Yeah. I love. I wish they would have skipped the whole idea of going to college or whatever. And 100% Scream 2 should have been the idea of they're making a movie of it now.
Yeah.
And we're in the neighborhood just because we've been like flown out, or I've been invited for this deal or that deal. And again, you don't have the bloating of it having happened twice already. And you can just like kind of streamline Sydney getting to the moment where she's like reliving her trauma, but as a set on a soundstage. Like that's such a powerful moment and stuff. And honestly, if anything, I know last time that we talked about a movie, I think it was I got to do my dream remake idea. Not hard idea, just a soft pitch for like, I wish they could do an Old Dark House.
Oh, yeah.
remake. And that would be my thing about the sequels of Scream, is I wish they could just find a way to tastefully and without bloating it, take some of the ideas that worked best of all three, condense it down into one sequel. And there was only a Scream 2. There was never a Scream 3 or 4.
Okay.
And that, you know, they just, like I said, really, really just put as much effort into it. You know.
My wish would be, in a perfect world,
Yeah.
there's only 3 Scream movies,
Yeah.
and you turn 3 and 2 into one movie.
Uh-huh.
You get rid of all the college garbage. You get rid of all of her
Trash.
like, ooh, I don't know if I can go through with doing this play. I don't.
And I would also say get rid of it being like her stepbrother, I think.
Yeah, get rid of that.
I don't like that one that much.
Figure out a better killer for 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Combine them into one movie where she's in college, she's laying low, but also they're doing the movie, and she finds herself at the set somehow.
Yeah, because there's so many cool things that happen with the movie, like even that scene that you love where like he's in the Ghostface closet.
Yeah, and
You know?
they find a way to have just 100 ghost faces
Yeah.
in the scene. Yeah.
And even just the idea that like, here's a little bit of like I'm not saying motive, but like, yeah, the killer could potentially be intrigued because he's like, look at me, I'm actually killing people on the set, kind of meta.
Yeah.
I don't know who he would be or what his this, that, and the other would be, but yeah.
That sounds like a job for me and you. Something fun that we could do together.
Yeah.
Let's write Scream 2, baby.
And then, yeah, sure, Scream 3 could be your Scream 4, where 10 years later you'd make another one, because...
With the better ending.
Money, 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 money. Dollar,
Also
dollar.
in our Scream
Dollar, dollar.
sequel, we go with the original casting, where Patrick Warburton's character, Stone, is played by Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And guess what? In our sequel, Jamie Kennedy don't die.
Oh, yeah. In our sequels, Jamie Kennedy makes it until Scream 8.
In our sequels, he ends up vice president.
He becomes the new Sidney. He's the final girl.
Scream 2, a cold open on Jamie Kennedy.
A cold open.
What do you mean Sydney had a heart attack?
I was going to say a cold open on Sidney dying immediately.
Yeah,
the
cold
Drew
open
Barrymore-
Sydney's funeral. Jimmy Kennedy crying over casket.
She's the Drew Barrymore in Scream 2.
Yeah.
She dies immediately.
She's home alone eating a sandwich. She chokes to death.
Oh no, she gets killed by Ghostface. Chris, I think we're onto something. Scream 2 opens, first 5 minutes, Sidney dies.
There you go.
Oh,
Follow Jamie Kennedy. Rest of the movie.
well, we're off and running, but let's get these women out of this movie. Gail Weathers on
Dead.
vacation in Europe.
It's just Jamie Kennedy and Dewey hanging out. It's a buddy comedy for 90 minutes.
It's Scream 3. It's called Jamie and Dewey. It's not even Jamie Carrot. I don't even remember what Jamie Kennedy's character.
Guess
name
what?
is.
Ghostface is a good guy now. He's hanging out with Dewey Cox and Jamie Kennedy's.
There's no murders involved at all.
It's all weed and dick jokes.
They're just detectives.
Yeah, they're actually working the beat in Hollywood. They got brought out because of the movie.
All the cops.
Die.
All the cops.
That's
die.
what Ghostface does. He kills all the cops so that they have to hire
Exactly.
Dewey and Jamie Kennedy.
They're the new police force.
Oh, and kind of like Batman, they've actually turned the city around for the better.
And at one point in the movie, they're out of options and they don't know where to go, so they make a big decision, and they're like, "Oh man, you're not thinking about him, are you?" They're like, "Well, if anyone knows this killer and his motives, it's going to be him." And they go to prison and
Matthew Lillard survived.
shut up. The cops wheel in a prisoner on like a gurney thing, like Silence of the Lambs, and they take off his mask, and it's Matthew Lillard.
Wow. I'd watch the fuck out of that movie.
Absolutely.
All we have to do is come up with a good crime that they're solving, which, while in the bath earlier, I have half of an idea for an episode of Columbo.
Did you take a bath?
Yes, I did.
You know, it's not making my top 100. A Scream 5. We got back just moments ago from seeing Scream 5.
Yes, mere moments. And I got spooked. Not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
I left for the bathroom, and it was almost like the scene in Scream 2. I like went in with like 2 guys, and then those 2 guys left or whatever, and I was just alone in the bathroom, and that MJR has like wall to your left, sink and mirrors, wall to your right, sink and mirrors, like wall to wall sink and mirror though.
Yeah.
So like it turns into a 4th dimensional like fucking fractal, and like I was just alone in there, and like it's not that bright, and it's like I think we saw it at like 1:45 or something. So there's something about the midday that's very Lynchian.
Yeah, you got up and left. We went to the theater we went into was, I think, basically someone's very big TV. It was very small.
Yeah, it was like a 7-seat
Yeah, and you got
MJR room.
Yeah, you got up and left and peed. And I don't think I've ever experienced something scarier than sitting in a movie theater alone because no one else was there.
Yeah.
When the lights
But
go
it's not
down.
a normal one.
It's a tiny little...
It's almost like some eccentric millionaire invited you to his home
Yeah,
movie
exactly.
theater.
Yeah.
And he was like, just a moment, I'll bring us back a bit of brandy. And he's gone for like a little too long, and then the lights go out on you. That's probably what it had to feel like.
I can almost hear the clash from his downstairs bowling alley across the hall going from his other party guests. And then at one point in the movie, because spoilers, I had already seen this before me and you wouldn't see it. And I was like, I just have to kind of pee. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be watching this movie, so I'm going to get up and go pee. And I went into the same bathroom, and you are 100% correct. It's a very liminal space. It's maybe the quietest room I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And it was just horrifying.
Yeah.
I love MJRs because they just feel like quaint little movie theaters. Like, they're not the best theaters in the world, but everything just works, if that makes any sense. I can always get a seat. They usually work. I can get food or whatever. I don't have to.
Now they have bars?
Now they have bars. Wasn't open. We were pretty bummed out about that, even though it was 2 in the afternoon.
All it takes to not remember Isle of Dogs is 2 Long Island.
Yeah, exactly. I like Isle of Dogs a lot. I cannot tell you anything that happens in that movie.
Did you do Long Island's too, or
No,
was
I've
it me
seen
and Ben that was doing
It
the...
was you and Ben.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie. I've seen that movie 4 times. I can't. The boy's name is Atari, Bryan Cranston, and Edward Norton are dogs. It's great. I love it. It looks really nice, but I can't tell you anything about the plot of that movie. But yeah, we went and had a classic movie theater experience. We went in. You bought my ticket. I bought your food. You bought... by food, you bought a large Dr. Pepper.
Too much Dr. Pepper.
Too much Dr. Pepper.
Almost felt like a liter.
Yeah.
my
I think it
hands.
might have been. And then we went to the... You said, do you have Coke? And they said, yes. And we
Not
went over to the
true.
machine. They had a Pepsi freestyle machine, or whatever Pepsi calls them. And you got a Dr. Pepper. We made jokes about... We joked for too long about the different flavors of Mountain Dew and stuff you could get.
Yeah.
Our movie was starting in seconds, and we're like, oh, let's do some bits about Orange Crush. And then you filled up that giant thing with ice, and I was like, Chris, you're so concerned about the tap water. And you're like, oh, that.
Yeah, because for context, here in Michigan, there was a big expose about how scientists were basically like, hey, the tap, it's just straight brain damage. They're not doing what they're supposed to with the tap water. You think Flint's bad? Yeah, with lead, but there's other stuff that can be in the water. So anyways, and so yeah, it was you that I was like, this has got to be like brain damage ice, right? And you're like, oh, for sure.
No, I said.
Oh, no,
that's got to be brain
yeah,
damage.
yeah,
I
yeah,
said.
yeah.
Well, they probably have like a water filter in here, don't
And then
they?
midway through saying that, I was like, I don't think they're getting a guy with braces to go do that every hour or whatever, every 3 weeks or whatever it is.
And then you dumped out all the ice, and then you filled it with Dr. Pepper, and you're like, well, the water they put in the mix with the syrup has got to be brain damage water, too. And so you dumped that out, and then you filled it with ice, and I think you dumped it out again. I don't know, it took you 6 minutes to fill up a cup full of Dr. Pepper. And then after all this deliberation about how bad the tap water might be...
We missed the movie.
You saw just an open container of jalapenos sitting on the counter, and you're like, ooh, I'm going to take one of these. And I had to almost physically stop you from grabbing just an
Slap my hand.
from a jalapeno just sitting out in the open air. And then anyway...
That can't be good, right? Just to have them out like that?
No, absolutely not. That's why I stopped you. If I ever see any type of food sitting out anywhere, I don't want it. If I'm in a McDonald's and I go
Opposite. I want it.
If I go one hamburger, please, and I can see that the hamburgers are just sitting out, I'm like, never mind.
Oh. Anyways, I kind of have a bit of a feeling we're about to prove Scary Movie 5's point.
Do.
Mail time.
Mail time.
It'd be really good if we could. It'd be really good if we could edit in like a slash sound when you do the Scream.
I'll think about it, yeah.
Okay. All right, Scream 5. Let's see what we got here. Scream. My brain is mush. I have seen somewhere around 20 sequels in the past 5 months. My brain is mush. Scream 5 sits in my brain mush and splashes around in it, covering itself in what used to be my fine motor functions and memories of my late grandfather. Directed by whoever and starring no one. Scream 5 is a film that the first Scream was created to mock and shame. Bad motivations, boring killers, forgettable performances, and uneventful kills, and poorly CGI'd de-aging effects on old-ass actors makes mushy mush, brain mushy mush. I will no longer be watching any more movies. Thank you. 3 out of 10. I liked Jack Quaid. This is my favorite letter that we've ever received.
Yeah.
cue the theme song. I think that was all that needed to be said.
Yeah, this movie fucking sucks.
Yeah. Let me start from the top. Here's how I feel about the movie. My brain is mush. I've seen somewhere around 20 sequels in the last 5 months. My brain is mush. Scream 5 sits in my brain mush and splashes around in it, covering itself in what used to be my fine motor functions and memories of my late grandfather. Directed by whoever and starring no one, Scream 5 is a film that the first Scream was created to mock and shame. Bad motivations, boring killers, forgettable performances, uneventful kills, and poorly CGI'd de-aging effects on old-ass actors makes mush. Mushy, mushy brain mush. So real quick, I'm going to keep this in my pocket and refer back to it whenever I feel like I've hit a lull on what I want to complain about with Scream 5. But yeah, also, I will say though, at the end, spoilers, I'm still going to give it like a C because it's fine enough. I don't know if I'll ever watch it, but I think it's about as strong as 4 was or 2 was. It's probably only better than. Those are probably, like, if I were going to do a Scream tier list at this point, it would probably go like 1, 2, 5, and 4. Kind of just next to each other, and then the very last, maybe 3's better. It'd probably go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, 1, 2, 4, 5, 3. That's probably how I'd go.
Yeah, mine would go probably 1, 4, 2, 3, 5.
Yeah.
No, 3, 2, 5. I like 3 more than 2.
Yeah.
Not for good reasons. I would rather watch it. So I saw this movie like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you go ahead and go first a little bit.
And I've just been stewing on it. I've just been mockering on it. That's Matthew Lillard's name of the first one, I think.
You take the reins. I'll jump in when I feel like I got something to splash in.
This movie is bad. It started and it's going on, and it starts doing some stuff where I'm like, I think I'm gonna like this movie.
I thought so too. I thought there was a good chance.
I think it looks really good. I think there's a lot of. I think
decent,
Ghostface looks really good. I think they do a lot of cool shots with him. I think his like mask looks just perfectly clean in whites.
Mm-hmm.
Like after when right at the beginning where he's stabbing Tara, I believe, and he gets up and there's just that shot of him like getting bigger over her. I like that. Or like when he kills, spoilers, Dewey, there's just that shot of him standing in the hallway with Twist, 2 knives.
Oh yeah, that was the biggest twist I think in cinema history.
Yeah,
I actually leaned over to you in the movie theater when that happened, and I said out loud, I genuinely didn't expect him to have a second knife.
Or when he kills that weird dude who's in this movie for a total of 3 minutes and gets top billing.
Why was he even in there?
No idea. But they killed that guy behind. He kills that guy behind the bar.
Because hang on a minute, that was entirely just a loose end. Because there's even the point where David Arquette says, because they asked David Arquette, they're like, "Why would he kill that guy?" And he's like, "That's for you guys to figure out." Mm-hmm. They never try to figure out nothing. It's just
not
hanging.
At all.
But
I really like that shot. I like that they're playing a red right hand.
Yes.
I think every Scream movie should have red right hand in it. And the one thing that bothers me is it cuts when he's wiping off the knife, and it goes in his red right hand, but he's wiping the blood off with his left hand. So he's got a red left hand. That really bothers me. I think they have some interesting stuff that they're going for, but my biggest problem with this is they talk about being meta, and they talk about what this movie's going to be.
That's been my problem since the first one, honestly.
Yeah?
Is that they have a lot of meta talking to do.
Yeah, that's what I hate about 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
1, they talk about it here and there. Rain
and it's kind of whatever.
Stuff, but it's doing more than it's saying.
Yes.
This movie does almost none of it. They go, oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to... They do fulfill their promise that there's a new cast with legacy characters, which just makes this movie just decentralized.
On a side note, though, real quick, I definitely want to just highlight what you just said, because I feel like it's a lot of what our criticism for these movies have been since the first one, is that it is so much talk and not a lot of walk. I think the way that I put it at one point was that Scream... I think it was while we were talking about Scream 4, I went on a long rant where I was like, I don't know if you're going to totally agree with me, because I know you like this one a decent amount, but I said that ultimately my problem with all of them is that Scream 1 earns the right to do some table talk and whatnot.
Yep.
All these other ones kind of don't.
Yeah, like it's almost like what we were talking about with the last movie, where I think Scream 1, what's his face going on about movies and stuff like that, it's almost a little bit like, just go with us on this. The idea of a kid being like, "Oh, this is how horror movies work, and this is what's going to work here." It's like
Yeah.
nobody would talk like that in this situation, but whatever, I buy it.
No, but you've also seen enough in movies of like even like Salem's Lot. Like there's that young boy who like loves monsters. That's a staple of movies. So in a sense, like that one's situated so close to that in my mind that it seems like not that far of a leap to be like, oh well, that kid grows up eventually. And what happens? He works at a movie theater. A Blockbuster, and he's still obsessed with horror movies. And he might talk like this now. It is a little like just go with it for sure, but it gets even harder to go with every time they make another one of these movies.
Yeah, exactly. Like
because eventually, just like you were just saying about the legacy cast, how it becomes decentralized because it's about this new cast. Same thing. But in a different way. They have that centralized to Jamie Kennedy in the first movie.
Yeah.
And a little bit in the second one, but after that, in the 3, 4, and 5, it's decentralized, and suddenly every character in your movie has something snide comment section-y to say about horror movies.
Yep.
There's no longer that guy. It's everybody has something to say.
Yeah.
And in a sense, maybe that's intended to be comedy, but I mean not comedy, commentary on how like everybody's got an opinion now, but gag me with a spoon. I put that in the category of if your movie is meta and has actors in it, don't make them fucking buffoon blonde-haired 2x4s because that's not interesting commentary anymore. Same bin. That's going in the same bin if that was your point. Anyways.
Yeah, like the first one, Jamie Kennedy is saying all this stuff, and everyone's like, "Oh, fucking whatever, Randy."
Yeah.
And then at the end, it's kind of like everyone's like, "Oh, fuck, would you look at that? Randy was kind of right." And then in the rest of the movies, they're like, "We have to listen to exactly what Randy says because he is gospel," and it just sucks.
Because in the initial, like, it didn't really feel like it was that biting of commentary. He was just saying like, oh, dude, in these old slasher movies, don't have sex because you're going to die. Don't do drugs because you're going to die. And never say, I'll be right back. That's pretty much all he says. And he says that other thing about your motive. Those are just tried and true staples where you can't go wrong making those comments. Each time we see a movie, it compounds to the point where they're like, well, actually, The Babadook is elevated horror because it has elements of, an emotional climax that coincides with the violence. And it's like, whoa, dude, again... You've turned everybody into like I said, like armchair film critics is just, and I get that everybody knows a bit about movies, but it goes to the point where like I can no longer just go with it. You've taken me out of the movie because, again, people kind of talk like this, but like not exactly. Like it just feels a little robotic.
And I think my biggest thing about it, they might do this in 2, 3, and 4. I don't think they do it in 5. But something I love about 1 is right when he gets to that point where like he's throughout the movie he's been like throwing things out here and there like this is how these movies work and blah blah blah, but at the end at the party when he gets up and he goes, these are the rules, this is what you have to do, you never say I'll be right back because you won't come back. Matthew Lillard says I'll be right back and he comes back,
Very funny.
and he goes, you can't have sex, and it cuts to her
And she
losing
does have
virginity,
sex.
and it immediately is just telling you we're deviating from this.
Yeah. Also, he's
This is
not right.
Yeah, he's not right this time. He's been right up until now.
Yes.
But this movie is doing something different now.
That's a great way to put
the rest
it.
of these movies, they just fucking do that.
100%. Yeah.
And it sucks.
That's a great way to put it. I definitely glossed over that, and thank you for bringing that up. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and in especially this one, just because you're telling me how these movies work, and then you make the most derivative movie I've ever seen, doesn't make it smart or clever.
Yeah.
I really hate when I hear people talk about movies and go, oh, well, they should have done this. If they would have made this movie like this, it would have been good.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, it's like, well, that's not what the movie is. If you have those complaints and you're thinking of that while you're watching the movie, there's no way you're going to like it. But that's exactly what I'm going to do with this movie.
Yeah.
Because my biggest problem with it, and the wildest part of this movie, is our, I guess, main character is the illegitimate daughter of Billy Loomis. So she sees him in the mirror all the time, because I guess that's how that works.
Yeah, that was my first thing. As soon as he saw her, I was like, oh, geez. Like, I am a pretty vocal opponent to the idea of, like, just grabbing out of the cliche, like, oh, let's just reach into the old Hollywood stereotype of what mental illness is like bag and just pull out a very uninformed depiction of what being psychotic would be. Like, because in real life, I really, really doubt that's how that works if you're taking antipsychotic. I don't really feel like people
see that kind
See
of
visions
thing.
of their dead father that they never met? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And my thing is, the first time I saw it, when you first see him, I was like, oh no. And I was like, but this is a Scream movie. They might do something clever with this. And they don't. They do it that once in the hospital, 10 minutes later when she's driving, and then they completely forget about it for the next hour and a half.
Just the worst is absolutely when she's like at the very end and she's like, yeah, you broke the cardinal sin of horror movies. Don't fuck with the daughter of a psychopath. And then there's like a 45-second scene where she just keeps stabbing and stabbing and stabbing. And I'm like, okay, not the hero anymore. Don't like her.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable now. What the fuck was that?
To what I was saying is, I think this movie would be better this way, and I hate when people do this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I thought when you see him in the mirror and then she gets attacked immediately in that hospital, she's on the phone with the killer, and she goes, well, come and get me. And the killer goes, fine, and then just throws open the door that's right behind her, because the door is already open and he's hiding behind the door and the wall, between the door and the wall.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's no fucking way she would not have heard him behind her. Mm-hmm. And then she has that fight with him, and the cop goes in and no one's in the room. And I'm like, okay, if they do this, that it is her, and we get like a Fight Clubby thing, and it is, and this movie is a commentary on modern horror films, like they keep talking about at the beginning, like it's an elevated horror film where it's like, oh, is she crazy or is she not? If that's what this movie was, I think it could have been good. I think a current day Scream should probably be doing that.
Yeah.
And then you find out at the end, oh, the killers were all the kids, and they know she has this going on, so they're trying to convince her that that's what's happening, or something like that.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And for it to just be actually nothing in this movie.
Yeah.
And, oh, God, the worst fucking part of this movie. I think these are the worst set of killers we've had in any of these movies.
Absolutely easy. That was another bit of just couldn't keep my mouth shut in the movie theater. As soon as it was revealed, I leaned over to you and I was like, since the first one, God, though, just the why is always the most boring part of these movies. And also they have had shit luck as far as trying to get anybody who even is half as naturally intimidating as Stu and Billy were as actors. Like those actors, when they're not in Ghostface, they're almost scarier.
Yeah, like you said right when we were leaving, we made a rule that we weren't going to talk about this movie until we get to the podcast.
Just like Scream, we broke it.
We talked about it so much. You made a really good point. Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich are the only two people I have ever found threatening in any of these movies, outside or inside of the ghost face costume. Yeah. But especially when they're in that kitchen at the end of that movie, and it's like, oh fuck, and it's like, it's they do the thing that everybody does when everybody tries to copy from them. It's just like, oh, we're really wacky now because we've revealed it and we're showing you that we're crazy, and that works for them, A, because it's the first time, and B, you get that scene where they start fucking stabbing each other.
Yeah. And it's paired with them actually doing something really insane. Because, like, don't get me wrong, killing everybody you know is insane.
Yeah.
But I've seen it enough that almost like Clue, like, I see a movie where someone gets killed, and it's fair to say we're all desensitized at this point. It's not really that big of a deal. So if that's all they're doing, come on. That's why Scream works so well, exactly like you just said. They start stabbing each other, and you're like, what the fuck? I've never seen someone do that. So I feel like any of these movies could have benefited from like them actually doing something crazy.
And they work so well because when they're given their monologue at the end, and Billy goes, get too complicated with the motive, you lose the audience.
Which is exactly what they did in 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Especially 4 and 5, though, because 4, we talked about it. They were like, God, fuck, she's got like 3 motives. There's a whole thing about 15 minutes of fame, and like she's just trying to get hers. And then it's like, so it's like a commentary on like how this generation is just hungry for its 15 minutes. And same thing with this one. Like it turns out to be this thing where like they're having this whole big conversation about how like sequels, you can't just do a sequel and you can't just do a remake, and so it's got to be a requel, and so like the fans, yeah. And then suddenly it turns out that your 2 killers are people who are like, you fucked with my movie, I loved stab, which again is supposed to be commentary on like how people didn't like the last Scream because they felt like they fucked with what the original Scream was, and so they have this larger overarching commentary about how like, yeah, sequels worked at one point, and remakes worked at one point, but now neither of those works. You gotta blend the two like Star Wars and yada yada. And nothing that they say is untrue. It's just too convoluted to be the motive for your killer. And 2, fuck you. Just again, like, okay, make a Jamie Kennedy character who says that, and then have your murderer have like some very simple because again, like
yeah, my big thing about the end of this movie is their motivation
is 4chan
is the meta part of this
Yeah.
movie, where that's the commentary about fans and stuff like that. What I was getting to in the first one, where he goes, if the motive gets too complicated, you lose the audience.
Yeah.
But here's my really complicated motive, and he talks about
Yeah.
how his mom was cheating on his dad with her dad, and this and that. But you can tell in that scene, and you can tell throughout the rest of the movie because you get hints from it, that Billy Loomis is just an insane man.
Yes.
And he's just using this as an excuse
Yeah.
to start killing people, and he talked his friend into doing it with
which
him.
is in real life kind of how like you get that sense from some real life serial killers.
Yeah.
That nope, they're just broken. They may be saying that they have this reason for doing it or that they have this reason to do it, but like I can just look in their eyes and tell that there's something wrong in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're saying one thing, but that doesn't mean that I believe that that's true
Yeah.
for them in their head. And that's another great example of the horse that we've just been beating for like 5 episodes now, which is that the first one did a great job of creating characters who actually felt like they were mentally unwell.
Yeah.
You know?
And
Because like another example from the first one is both Stu and Billy have a couple of scenes throughout the thing, like when they're intimidating Jamie Kennedy, where you're like, oh god, that's a little uncomfortable. Or when Billy says, Jesus, your mom's been dead for like a year, could you get over it? Like they say things that are like, what the fuck? What did either of those two characters do in this movie? There was like maybe that one scene where the woman was in the garage with the other girl, Liv or whatever, and she's like, well, I am the killer or whatever. And like that was supposed to be a little weird, but no, you're missing the mark. The whole thing is that like they should be saying something that like, you know, if you said at a dinner party, people would like gasp at or something. They should be saying something that's like kind of a kerfuffle, like, oof. Like example, Billy Loomis shouldn't say you should be over it because your mom died a year ago.
yeah.
Her saying maybe I am the killer is something that anybody might kind of like joke about a little bit. Like if someone was killing all of our friends, I'm sure one night we would have a couple of beers and be like, hey, fuck, maybe it's you. No, it is me. Whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that it's like, I'm just saying it's not that abnormal.
Yeah.
It's not crazy enough. You need to up the ante a little bit on how crazy your characters are.
That's such a good part about the first one is throughout the whole movie, they're telling you Billy Loomis is the killer.
Yeah.
Until right at the end, where the switch becomes there's 2 of them. So you see him get stabbed and you go, fuck, I guess it's not him.
Yeah.
And then bada bing, bada boom, it's both of them.
Yeah.
And the thing about your mother, blah, 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 or where they're teaming up on him in the video store.
Yeah.
It very much so feels like Billy Loomis is the crazy one. And Stu is just a boy who's got his back, which is what it is. And this and all the other ones, the killers are just completely normal people who sometimes leave the movie for a very long time and you never see them anymore.
100%.
But in this one, they're just 2 normal
100%.
people, and at the end, she's like, "Ooh, I was been obsessed since my parents bought this house," and he's like, "I've been obsessed with these movies forever, and I moved to this city and got into a relationship with you because I was gonna bring you here." And it's like, oh, this is way
Jumping
too
a
much.
shark on a shark.
And,
Like you're
like-
riding a shark off the ramp to jump the shark.
And when they start talking about, it's because toxic fandom can't be toxic. How can it be toxic if you love something? Every time they delivered a new line, I could see you out of the corner of my eye, put your head in your hands.
Yeah.
It's just so bad. And I hate's a strong word. I really don't like the actress who plays Amber. I don't find her interesting at all in this movie.
Yeah, very bland.
Very bland. I do think it's fun that she gets lit on fire at the end of this movie, and the only other movie I've seen her in is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where she gets lit on fire at the end.
I don't know that it's her fault. I just don't think she should have been the killer character. Because otherwise, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, and
It's almost until she becomes the killer that I can stand her.
A big problem I have with this movie is this girl is like 5'3", and she weighs maybe 100 pounds.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say to you, what point did you think, Ghostface could be a girl this time?
Never. And my biggest problem is there's that scene in the hospital where the other killer is running away with everybody else from her, and she's 6'4".
Yeah.
And she picks up David Arquette with 2 knives.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not. And I was so excited when he shoots Ghostface.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, fuck. if they kill one of these killers right
Yes,
now in the
would
middle of
be
this movie,
fantastic.
this is going to be awesome.
Would
I can't wait to see how the rest
fantastic.
of this movie goes. And then they get in the car and they're like, we're leaving Woodsboro. And I'm like, awesome. How is
Absolutely.
the other killer going to get to them?
Yeah.
And they just undo those immediately.
You're right, too. Those are great observations. Those are two different pathways they could have taken that
Yeah.
would have been interesting. I
And
think
Dave
that would have been interesting.
Arquette goes, to shoot this person in the head, I need to be within stabbing distance of them.
Well, you know what? Also, even if they did leave Woodsboro, they're leaving with one of the killers. So there you go.
Yeah.
It would have worked out,
Yeah.
too. You know, you could have done a couple of interesting things. Real quick, and to get back on your soapbox of like what they should have done. Well, I guess we never left because we're currently doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I think could have worked pretty well is if they would have upped the ante with how many people were doing the murdering. Like, for example, I was talking to my dad about it because he also saw it, and he was like, I thought perhaps it'd be interesting if there were 3 killers, right? Because he had this thing about how, like, well, what if, Tara or whatever, the younger sister, was, like, involved. She found out about what her sister was lying about and, decided to, like, her 2 close friends, whatever. I genuinely thought at a certain point, much like your 2 little things, like the leaving and the what if they killed one of the Ghostface, there was a point where I was like, oh fuck, what if it's her whole friend group?
Yeah.
Because if you were doing the 15 minutes of fame angle like the last one, or if you were doing they're gonna make a movie out of this angle, that was one of the 2 or 3 motives that these killers had. It's not outside of the realm of believability, in my opinion, that 4 people would agree to be a part of a murder.
Yeah, for all it does
serial
wrong,
killer.
my favorite part of Scream 3 is that there's one. Mm-hmm. Like, they ditch the 2 killers immediately because we've done it twice already, and then they do it in 4, and then they do it in 5. Yeah, I would have loved for them to mix that up a little bit. Do you want to say something you like about this movie?
I genuinely, like I said, the reason why I gave the spoiler and saying that I'd give it a C is that besides the failings to live up to what the first one did in terms of, like, I guess to use the lingo, like the movie having the proper, like, almost like motive.
Yeah.
Besides all that, just beat for beat, a lot of it is, like you said, good to look at, very watchable, for the most part.
Yeah.
I very, like, non-offensive, just worked out fine. That's the best I can say for, like, 70% of the movie.
I completely disagree.
Yeah.
I feel like so much of it that I like at the beginning,
Uh-huh.
the first time I saw it, was because I was thinking, this is a Scream movie.
Yeah.
This is going to pay off.
Yeah.
And when none of those things pay off, they become meaningless and no longer good to me.
Yeah. That's fair to say. But like I said, that's if I was just giving it's like the overview, like, it's just fine. In terms of like sue me if you'd like, but I thought the fucking him referring to his biceps as fucking Hobbs and Shaw was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't expecting it, and I don't think they I don't know, yeah, I just thought it landed. It didn't, like, in my opinion, get delivered in a way where, like, even just the way that the syllables are pronounced is corny. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes in movies, like, the delivery will be off, and it's just the way it's delivered that'll be. But no, it just kind of came out nonchalant, and I wasn't expecting it. And I was like, that's pretty funny, because that's like a Fast and Furious, like 7, 8, 9 kind of reference. That's not even like that's a recent addition. That's pretty funny. Like, I feel like it's a joke that I might make. Like, if we heard a noise outside, I'd be like, show that guy to Hobbs and Shaw, and you'd probably snicker a little bit because you'd be like, well, it came out of nowhere. And that's just how I felt about it. Where I was like, man, it kind of came out of nowhere. That was all right. Yeah, I guess, like you said, I also like the way that Ghostface looks. I
was thinking about Ghostface looking good when he stabs Wes in the neck in his house.
Yeah.
The blood and knife, everything's all CG, but they do a little computer graphics where some blood goes back onto his mask.
Yeah.
And I thought, that'd be super cool if, just as the movie went on, the mask got a little bloodier.
Uh-huh.
But since there's 2 of them, there's 2 different masks.
Uh-huh.
So one's a little bloody, maybe one's not, or maybe one's bloody in one way, one's bloody in another way. That'd be fun.
I have never come across this. I only know about it because of a conversation I had with my dad. But there are people out there who have studied the location of where Stu and Billy are and their body language and have been able to pretty accurately, I guess, I don't know, but map out which killer is doing the killing.
Yeah.
And even in scenes like the opening one, they've theorized that there's no way that like the killer could be here and here or here and then here. And so this is an example of a killing that has to be both of them doing it. And so like they have like layouts where they can show like where the people are, each of them are moving. Like for example, like you know how I complained about the first one, like how quickly they get Drew Barrymore's body into that tree. It's easily explained by this map because they're like, well, because it's both of them, so they're able to easily throw her up there very quickly. You know what I mean? Whereas one person would struggle to get it up there, kind of a thing. Whatever it is, right? That kind of thing.
Yes,
So-
but right after that, they're at school, and they're like, well, what about you, Stu? Where
Yeah.
were you last night? He goes, I was with my girlfriend all night. Mm-hmm. So,
But anyways, I feel like we couldn't, you couldn't do that with this movie because, as we've said, one of the killers does not look like any of the ghost faces we saw. At least from what I can remember. I don't ever remember seeing it and thinking, ooh, there you go. So anyways, in terms of what I like about the movie, that's kind of it. Like I said, like, excuse me, as a first-time viewing experience, I was definitely watching it for a long time and thinking, wow, I really could like this Scream one. I might. And then, like you said, once it finally, like, you know, Scooby-Doo reveals, I'm like, oh, okay. So the most boring white guy I've ever seen, and this lady who
I love Jack Quaid. Sorry, go on.
and then this lady who just kind of annoyed me a couple of times throughout the thing. They're the killers, okay, and their reasoning is that they're just two members of toxic fandom. And again, it's one of those things where like it seems like cynical and mean, like the last one. Remember we were talking about how like it's like, oh yeah, it seems like the moral or whatever of this movie ends up being like, yep, that's what young kids want. They just want their 15 minutes, even if they have to get it through doing a massacre, which is fine because like I know that there's a lot of people talking about that with the whole like, you know, that's why people do mass shootings now instead of being serial killers because they want instant gratification or whatever. But then that kind of thing, I don't know, that might be a little too like serial killer glorification, in my opinion, to say something like that. But I know that I have heard people say that kind of thing. Whatever. Ultimately, I end up thinking it becomes sort of pointed at the audience unfairly. And same thing with this one. As someone who definitely thinks that every one of the movies since the first Scream is basically kind of pissed on Scream's grave. Yeah, you turn the bad guys into people who think you haven't made a good movie in 4 movies.
Yeah.
That seems kind of...
I mean, and yeah, that's the thing that's one of the things that gets me about them at the end. Toxic fandom, yeah, that shit sucks. But really, those
you
are
didn't
just
make good movies.
Yeah, those are just people that are extremely mad at your bad movies.
Yeah, that's
like
it.
when I see a bad horror movie, I go, whatever. Like this one.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm shitting on this one pretty hard.
But also, that's one of those things, like, just because I talked about it for a long time, like, I'm not going to, like, when we finish, I'm not going to go into my room and just be like, those fuckers. I'm probably not going to think about this movie ever again. The same way that I have not thought about Halloween Kills since we saw Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
I haven't really.
But that's why I'm saying now let's talk about some things that we like about this movie. I really like, again, how it looks. I love at the end. There's that whole scene at the party, and they purposely shoot it in different positions than they shot the first one. So you don't realize it's that house until
That's
she's
great,
on the
yeah.
phone with her, and it pulls out, and you see the staircase going into the kitchen.
That is a good
reveals
reveal.
the TV. And then when it cuts to her watching Stab and Jamie Kennedy being like, oh, turn around, Jamie. And it's shot from the same angle. It's like, oh, cool, this is the same house. Problem with that scene I really don't like. I hate her sitting on the couch saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I would have liked it more if she was like, you idiot.
Yeah.
Or just laughing at it or something like that. And because I do like her going, huh, and then turning around. That I thought I liked that. I love David Arquette in this movie. I think he's great.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. I think, honestly, it's an upgraded version of... Sorry, I'm not trying to be...
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I feel like it's a less cringy version of what they did with Jamie Lee.
I feel like that might be intentional too, and I like that.
Because like I said, like I'm not... It's just that the extent to which Jamie Lee has prepared for Michael Myers is only okay if, like... like Halloween H20 happened even.
Yeah.
Like it has to be this thing that's reoccurring in her life. Like for it to have happened like the once and the twice, like I can understand her being a bit paranoid. Like I would understand her character from H20 way easier than I would Halloween Kills and Halloween whatever the fuck the other one was called. Because as you pointed out when we were talking about H20 or whatever it was, you were like, I like that she's someone who has a hard time, maybe he's on medication, maybe he's in therapy, but is also the dean of a college.
Yeah.
Like, went on to do stuff.
Yeah.
Because in real life, that's kind of what ends up happening. Like, you maybe survive someone trying to kill you or whatever, and then you kind of go on with your life. Maybe you do have some problems or whatever. Maybe you turn to drugs or alcohol. But I really can't point to a real-life example other than, like, doomsday preppers of people who become gun net hoarders and try to turn themselves into Batman-style survivalists. So anyways, long story short, I know I went on for way too long. But yeah, David Arquette seems like someone who is not well adjusted because of the fact that they've been through 4 horror movies.
Yeah. I see the Jamie Lee Curtis thing is one of those things that just go with it. Like, for me, it's like, hey, this is what she's like. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
It's somewhere
That's totally
in the
fair.
realm
I'm being
of
an asshole,
possibility.
but
no,
it seems weird.
I think you're definitely valid in saying that. It just doesn't bother me that much.
Mm-hmm.
I like Dewey in this one. You went to the bathroom when Courtney Cox shows back up and they talk about their relationship and how it ended. I do believe that this would happen to a man who went through all this horrible stuff and then had to break up with his wife because things just weren't working out.
Yeah.
They talk about them ending the relationship. They moved to New York so she could do her thing, and he just couldn't cut it.
Yeah.
And he just left in the middle of the night after 2 months.
Yeah.
And she's shitting on him for that. And he's like,
Yeah.
listen, I'm a coward. I know that. And she's like, Dewey Cox, whatever his last name is. Dewey Cox, if there's one thing you are, I know it's not a coward.
Yeah.
And she goes, why aren't you in uniform?
And that's such a nice, like, that's a good line, like, because it's like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's her saying, I love you and this is something I like about you, which is why you disappointed me so much.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
And then she goes, why aren't you in uniform? And he goes, I retired. And she goes, when? And he goes, when they asked me to. And I love that, too.
Yeah.
So him going through all this stuff and then having to retire, I believe he lives in a shack
Yeah.
and drinks booze for breakfast.
And to be
stuff like
honest,
that.
let's talk about what we like some more. I forgot to mention also that I do, even though we've been very vocal about how we don't like the rule that this movie's kind of made up initially to make fun of, like, Halloween, that, like, oh, it has to be someone who's related to Sydney that's the murderer or whatever. I genuinely was not that offended with her being like, yeah, thought it would be neat to look at my mom's old
yeah.
whatever. Turns out, cheated on whatever, and when I went to confront my mom about it, didn't even notice my dad was there. That was the first time he was hearing about it, so he fucking left. There's so many things about that like work out, and they're so dramatic, and yeah, that's great.
Oh, my God. Something I totally forgot. They keep mentioning their mom away on business.
Never shows up.
And it's just like the first one. I'm like, oh, they're going to find her in the closet or something like that. No, mom just doesn't really care that her daughters are getting attacked.
Doesn't give a fuck.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Dave Arquette.
No, it's nice to see Dewey back.
I like him getting his hero moment at the end there.
Yeah, I feel like they gave way less to Gale and Sydney.
Yes, that's one
seems
of
like-
the weird parts about this movie
Yeah.
when they show up at the end and they got the guns and they're like, you ready for this? No, never. It's like, it's weird that you two are here.
Yeah.
Like, it feels very out of place.
Yeah, I feel like they could have handled both of those characters with a little more respect, because it seems like they just show up at the end to do, like, generic buddy cop.
Yeah, they feel
basically.
like everything they're doing feels like main character shit, but they are barely in this movie.
So at the end, it just feels like someone stapled them in there because they're like, oh shit, we forgot to have Sydney and Gale.
Yeah, and
Like, it almost would have been better if they would have just been like, hey, Sydney, don't come here. And she was like, you're right, I can't. And, you know, and if Dewey was like, hey, Gale, just letting you know Ghostface is back, do not come. I'd have probably been even happier with that. Not because I don't want to see those characters. I do. It's nice to see them or whatever. But because of the middle ground between, like, giving them the same spotlight as Dewey and then just not having them at all is what we got. It ends up being just kind of whatever. You know, it just kind of being whatever.
Yeah,
It's
like,
just,
and like,
whatever.
Yeah, the whole, like, yeah, you have to have the legacy characters back. I get that. But put Dewey in the end.
Yeah.
The two of them, again, just, I love the both of them very much so. But yeah, it just, them being there at the end and being so involved with it definitely takes away from it being Sam's movie.
Yeah.
Or her point at the end. Like, it doesn't feel like it's her tackling this thing. It feels like she just happens to be there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So on that topic, I think at this point, 5 movies deep or whatever, even like the second, third, whatever, at a certain point, this is the second movie that's tried to do the legacy meets next generation thing, and it's not worked out.
I don't think it was ever gonna.
Yeah.
I think you got to keep the movie centered on those people, not because I want that, but because you've dug your own grave by making the first 3 about those people. So when the Scream starts rolling and I don't see Sidney Prescott, I'm kind of like, okay, how long until someone calls her on the cell phone, and then we start with her shoes and it pans up to her, and then she shows up with the gun, and then Gail shows up, and then Dewey shows up.
Yeah.
You know, it like the best way for me to describe it is it's like the first 40 minutes of Fire Walk with Me. I know
Okay.
that's supposed to be Dale Cooper, but Kyle MacLachlan just didn't want to get typecast, so he only agreed to do half the movie.
Not even. He's in like 10 minutes of that movie.
Whatever, yeah, whatever it is, whatever. But it's that kind of a thing where,
Yeah.
like, from rip, I'm like, okay, when's Dewey gonna be back, and when's Gail
Yeah.
gonna be back, and when's whatever gonna be back? So then, like you were saying, I'm basically repeating what you just said. Because of that, I end up not caring about any of these people because I know that the real stars are gonna come in eventually.
Yeah, and they don't even feel like they're real stars. Like, what I like so much about Halloween 2018 is there is, yes, a new cast of characters, but part of that cast of characters, very firmly, is Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
She's in the whole thing, and that's how I felt at the first half of this movie.
With
Very
Dewey.
firmly in this cast of characters is Dewey, and then they kill him.
Yeah.
And then he's gone, and then Gail and Sydney are kind of just there sometimes.
And he's he's the best choice for that because he's still in the town.
He's still the
And
town.
you just have the other
he's-
two not even come back because he could, like I said, he even does it. It's almost like the leaving Woodsboro moment where it's like you nailed it and then decided to not go with it when he texts them or whatever and says like and calls them and says, hey, don't even come. You know it's not
Yeah.
safe for you to come. You know.
And I do like him telling them to fuck off. And then when he's on the phone with Sydney and she goes, well, good thing they have you there to protect him. And he's like,
Yes,
fuck,
that's good
all
too.
right,
Yeah.
And so that was the movie, and fucking the two of them weren't really involved. It was just Dewey, because Dewey seems arguably the most affected by all this. I think that would have worked out probably better. The movie still would have been dog shit, but I think it would have been a little bit better. And-
Also, real quick, I want to mention him dying and just say 5 movies deep. It didn't really hit me because, like I said, in the movie theater, I was like, it probably would have hit more if I didn't feel like these actors, all 3 of them, were not supposed to be in 5 movies.
Yeah,
This is the only slasher franchise, I'm pretty sure, that has literally the same core 3-4 characters for more than even just a movie.
Yeah.
You know? At this point, they're 5 movies deep with the same cast. I mean, Friday the 13th does not operate like that. Nightmare on Elm Street does not operate on that, although Nightmare does have a couple of movies where, like, the character from the last one will continue into the next one or something, but then end up ultimately getting killed. Same thing with, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's always new. Yeah.
Well, because you always have the same killers in those.
Yeah.
And so I think, for this one, you have to keep those guys in it for it to still be a Scream movie.
Yeah. Which is just crazy because then it becomes like, Jesus Christ. Like, imagine if with this frequency, someone was trying to, like, copycat kill the same serial killer. Every time it happens, it becomes less and less believable. And my ultimate point that I'm coming to is that I genuinely thought at this point, fuck it, bring back Stu or Billy. Seriously, at this point, fuck it. Because they're the only effective and interesting killers you had. Just fuck it. Bring one of them back. I don't give a shit how much of a leap in logic it is. Fuck it.
My absolute biggest problem with this movie, somebody cut Matthew Lillard a fucking check. Put him in this goddamn movie. Matthew Lillard is one of the greatest actors of all time.
Yeah.
Why would you bring in fucking goddamn nobody Skeet Ulrich at the end of this movie and not Matthew Lillard? Work him in there somewhere. I want to see my man get paid to act.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like-
Also, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, like, every other one finds a way to, like, say it without saying it and just be like, yep, he's back, you know?
Yeah.
So why not?
Why not? Bring him back.
Bring him back.
I don't think we saw Stu die in Scream 1. Bring him back. I don't care if you're going to do all this nonsense.
Yeah.
Bring Matthew Lillard back.
Is it that much crazier than them being like, oh, Michael's just been sitting in an insane asylum for 40 years?
No. Is it any crazier than, she's having visions of her dead biological father?
No.
No, it's not.
No. So that's ultimately what I've been just dying to say this whole time, but I've been a little embarrassed. Just bring Stu back.
Just bring Stu back.
Yeah.
I do like Jack Quaid. I like him in everything. I think
the end is rough because he doesn't have a lot to work with. But I
No.
like him throughout this whole movie. I think he's very charming. I think he's very funny.
Yeah. Well, that's ultimately why I don't like that actress, and I don't like Mr. Quaid or whatever his name is.
Quaid, yeah.
Dennis
Quaid's son.
But both of them, like I said, are just, if anything, they're given the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
They're just, it's almost like, I feel like this is true about all of the sequels, but we're just talking about this one specifically. You have a slasher movie until 10 minutes before, and then it just seems like the writers went, It almost, here's how I'm going to connect it to Clue. It almost feels like by the time the reveal is ready, you could pick anyone.
Yeah. I will say the second time seeing this, I picked up on a nice little touch from Jack Quaid that I like when they're in the hospital and Dewey shoots her and she's just, Ghostface is just sitting there and they start rushing for the elevator. Jack Quaid seems very concerned about it.
Yeah.
He keeps looking back like, oh,
that's
fuck.
interesting.
Oh, fuck.
You know
oh,
when I
fuck.
knew for sure Jack was it? Because I had suspicions when David Arquette brings it up and says, it's obviously the boyfriend.
Yeah.
I knew for a fact, even though the whole setup is like, oh, who am I going to kill? As soon as Ghostface didn't immediately stab him to death and just cut him on the arm, I was like, just cut him on the arm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because he cuts him on the arm and throws him, and then he chases her for a little while, and then he says the whole thing of like, which one am I going to kill? And I'm like, you can try to cover your tracks, but that was fishy.
Yeah. But no, at the end, I like just little moments from Dennis Quaid. I don't think he gets too over the top like What's-Her-Face does. Like
God, I just now pieced together. You said it a second ago, but that means that 5'3", whatever her name is, double stabs him and then picks up his weight with the double stab.
Yeah.
Insane.
But
Insane. Did not happen. There's no way.
No, absolutely
There's no way.
way.
David Arquette, he looks solid in that movie. There's even a point when you first see him where I feel like on his like left bicep you can see a vein through his little shirt.
Yeah.
And also, I know that over the last couple of years, he actually did a run on the indie scenes in wrestling.
Yes, he
so he's
did.
in pretty good shape.
Yes, he is.
He's got to be a thick person.
And then she tackles that football player at the end of the party and stabs him to death. Yeah, that doesn't work. But
I'm not buying it.
I like Jack Quaid at the end. I like when he stabs What's-Her-Face and she looks at him in the eyes and he goes, I know, it's a bummer that it's me. I like that. Or I like when they're talking in the kitchen at the end and he goes, you should have listened to Dewey. He got it in one. He said it was me immediately.
Yeah.
Like, I like that. But then, the toxic fandom, we met on a subreddit. And I'm like, fuck it off. I hate this. But Scream 5.
You know what I feel like I haven't seen, and I'm sure it exists. But the other side of the coin, not a whodunit, but how come there's not a very prominent or well-known like How Ketchum slasher movie?
Yeah.
Would have been interesting if like the whole time we know it was Jack. Potentially, if they played their cards right. I'm not saying that like that's a surefire recipe to have a good, but it would be interesting because it would be interesting to see the slasher like sweating,
Yeah.
a little bit. Because now going back on the second watch, it would be interesting that little interaction, especially if like there's a little bit of a some little tell. But anyways, that's what I think I got. I'm trying to remember anything else. There was one other family in the theater.
Yes.
It was a adult man and his daughter, and for the first half, I was sad that they went because she was having a great time, and I liked it.
She was the best part of the movie.
Yeah, because like I have a lot of siblings, and when I'm watching stuff with them, I like when they like go like, "Oh no," because I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." Oh
Yeah,
no,
exactly,
yeah. And that was exactly every time that like like the phone would ring or something, she'd go, don't answer it," and I'm like, "You're right, yeah, don't answer it."
It happened once. The phone rang and someone went hello, and she went, Ghostface.
Yeah, and I felt really bad because they left like halfway through the movie, and I was like, "Damn!" Like, I hope they didn't leave because like I could hear him like the dad like shush her, and I wanted to like lean over and be like, no, it's okay, I love it.
Yeah,
but
this movie sucks, and she's making it way better.
Yeah.
So yeah, Scream 5. I'd give it a D.
Yeah.
A D minus.
There's also that little bit where they're watching a YouTube video reviewing the series.
That's a real podcast, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they splice in that information with like the what the Scream or the stab movies have become, where like he's lost his fucking like the arm pieces and his muscles are just out, and he's like wielding a machine gun, and the stab mask is like metallic. I like that enough. That was all right.
Fun,
yeah,
yeah,
that was funny.
They
The
should
other
put him
thing,
in space.
I guess there is a little tee off with the whole like, oh, that's kind of a psycho move, but it doesn't land as well as it should. I guess it is a little wonky that he's laying in the hospital bed with his girlfriend's estranged sister who just got attacked by Ghostface, and he's watching Stab, I guess. But then, like, is it any more crazy than, like, that girl whose uncle is getting murdered in the movie watching the scene where her uncle gets murdered or whatever? You know what I mean? I know he doesn't actually get murdered there. He dies in the second Scream movie, so probably, I guess, he dies in the second. I don't know. Does he? I don't know the Stab chronology, the actual stab chronology. But anyway, either way, is it any more crazy than her watching her uncle die?
I like her a lot too.
I do like her a lot.
Like I don't like her exposition of like we're doing a requel, but I just like her through the whole movie. I like when her brother strikes out and tells his girlfriend like, "Well, you might be the killer," and she gets up and she walks away, and you just see her at the other end of the hallway, watch her leave, and just give him a thumbs up.
Well, the thing about the requel is I think 4 was basically a requel too.
Yeah.
One of the criticisms you have is that like so much of it is just them recreating scenes from other whatever. So basically,
it's not. That wasn't one of my criticisms. It's something that I liked. I thought they managed to do that in a very clever way, where it's like 5 things on top of each other, making a new scene. I thought that was great, and they kept saying it's a reboot or whatever.
Yeah.
But
it was interesting because there's that moment in our podcast where I say like, oh yeah, because this came out in like 2018 or something like that, and you're like, Chris, this was 2011.
Yeah.
And before my dad even listened to that episode, because my dad listens to the podcast, I don't know if I ever actually said that on the podcast.
Shout out to your dad.
Shout out to my dad. He was actually giving Scream 4 a bit of praise because he was like, that was 2011, and they were basically making a rough version of what like the new Halloween movies are, which is the requel thing. He didn't use the phrase requel, but he was like, yeah, and I agreed with him because I was like, yeah, dude, like when I found out it was 2011, I was like, whoa, because like not that it's a good movie, which we were both agreeing on basically, but it's just that feels like the horror movie that you make now of a dead franchise.
Yeah, I think it works really well.
Yeah.
I like Scream 4.
I know.
think it for what it is, I think it ages pretty well.
Yeah, it's probably better than this one, definitely.
Absolutely,
For sure.
by miles.
Yeah. And also, I forgot to make this joke. There's that scene where David Arquette gets shit canned.
Is that a wrestling thing?
No.
Oh.
He gets hit in the head with the bedpan.
Does he?
But shit can is like a term for getting fired or whatever. I don't know what it means, but yeah, you don't remember like the killer hits him in the head really hard with the
bedpan? No, I don't remember that.
Because they're in the hospital at the end. Yeah. David Arquette gets hit in the head with a.
I believe you.
I'm gonna have to look it up real quick. We'll cut out the pause where I look it up, so don't say anything important. Dewey bedpan Scream 4.
Oh, in Scream 4. Yeah, no, I remember.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I was just making that joke because
I thought you meant this one because this one also has a fucking hospital in it.
No. Yeah, in Scream 4 he gets shit canned was my joke because a bedpan is basically. But I'm test. So anyways, Scream 5 C-ish, D, but you said D. I'll give it like a C minus maybe. Say C minus or maybe D. I'll split the diff. D plus. D minus. D just straight D. We're doing a straight D on this one. We agree again. We're 2 for 2.
Minus.
I'm going straight D.
Okay.
Yeah. Or at this point, should I just say F?
But there's some stuff you like about it. It's not horrible.
Yeah, it's not horrible. It's very largely inoffensive. And so yeah.
You know what? No, I'm giving it an F. There's stuff I like about it, but I've said this before.
Yeah.
I think this movie is boring.
Okay. Yeah.
And that deserves an F from me, I think.
Okay.
So I'm going to give it an F.
Well, there you go. I think that's that, Mattress Man.
If you need more soup, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or go to our website, eatingsoupalone.com. And until next time,